Faites l'appel, s'il vous plaît, Madame le greffier.
Monsieur le connétable de Saint-Hélier. Madame le connétable de Saint-Laurent.
Présente.
Monsieur le connétable de Saint-Brelade. Monsieur le connétable de la Trinité.
Présent.
Monsieur le connétable de Saint-Pierre.
Présent.
Madame le connétable de Saint-Martin.
Présente.
Monsieur le connétable de Saint-Jean.
Présent.
Monsieur le connétable de Saint-Clément.
Présent.
Monsieur le connétable de Gruville.
Présent.
Monsieur le connétable de Saint-Ouen.
Présent.
Monsieur le connétable de Sainte-Marie.
Présent.
Monsieur le connétable de Saint-Sauveur.
Présent.
Monsieur le député Southern. Madame le député Labbe.
Présente.
Monsieur le député Tadier. Monsieur le député Luce. Madame le député Dublé. Monsieur le député Morel. Madame le député Lehegara. Monsieur le député Ayer. Monsieur le député Ward.
Présent.
Madame le député Alves. Madame le député Gardner. Monsieur le député Ghost.
Présent.
Monsieur le député Farnham. Madame le député Moore. Monsieur le député Mezek.
Présent.
Monsieur le député Osef. Monsieur le député Balash. Monsieur le député Coles.
Présent.
Madame le député Poré.
Présente.
Monsieur le député War.
Présent.
Madame le député Miles.
Présente.
Madame le député Scott. Monsieur le député Renouf.
Présent.
Madame le député Curtis. Madame le député Feltham. Madame le député Binet. Madame le député Jeune.
Présente.
Madame le député Miller.
Présente.
Madame le député Howell.
Présente.
Monsieur le député Binet. Monsieur le député Ferry.
Présent.
Madame le député Kovac.
Présente.
Monsieur le député Curtis. Madame le député Ward.
Présente.
Madame le député Wilson.
Présente.
Madame le député Stevenson.
Présente.
Monsieur le député Andrews.
Madame le greffier.
Prions Dieu. Notre aide soit au nom de Dieu qui a fait les cieux et la terre. Amen. Seigneur Dieu, Père éternel et tout-puissant, qui a établi les gouvernements et les puissances de la terre, pour le règlement et pour la conduite du peuple, et qui nous a commandé d'avoir toujours pour but la gloire de ton Saint-Nom, nous te prions qu'il te plaise de donner à cette assemblée le don de conseil et de prudence, d'unir le cœur et les affections de tous ceux qui la composent, et de les conduire tellement toi-même par ton Saint-Esprit, que toute la délibération étant en compagnie de ta bénédiction, réussisse au bien et au soulagement du peuple, qui te plus de commettra le soin. Car nous t'en prions au nom et par le mérite de ton Fils bien-aimé Jésus-Christ, notre Seigneur, qui nous a enseigné de t'invoquer en disant: Notre Père, qui es aux cieux, ton nom soit sanctifié, ton règne vienne, ta volonté soit faite comme terre comme au ciel. Donne-nous aujourd'hui notre pain quotidien, et nous pardonne nos offenses, comme nous pardonnons à ceux qui nous ont offensés. Et ne nous induis point en tentation, mais délivre-nous du mal. Car toi, le règne, la puissance et la gloire, au siècle des siècles. Amen. Monsieur le connétable de Saint-Brelade.
Sir, the Connétable of St. Brelard is away at a family funeral. He's off island currently, so I was hoping you could list him as excusé.
Members content that the connétable be marked excusé? Excusé.
Monsieur le député Southern.
Defo.
Monsieur le député Tadier. Madame le député Dublé.
Présente.
Monsieur le député Morel.
Présent.
Monsieur le député Ayer. Madame le député Alves.
Defo.
Monsieur le député Farnham.
Présent.
Madame le député Moore.
Présente.
Monsieur le député Osef.
Sir Deputy Yusuf is malade.
Vous jurez que Monsieur le député Joseph est tellement indisposé qu'il ne peut pas résister aux États sans exposer sa santé. Madame le député Scott.
So Deputy Scott is also unwell and has asked if she can be marked as malade as well.
Vous jurez que Madame le député Scott est tellement indisposée qu'elle ne peut pas résister aux États sans exposer sa santé. Madame le député Feltham.
Present.
Les États sont constitués. Deputy Jones.
Yes, thank you, sir. I would like to apologise to the Assembly and yourself that from this afternoon and tomorrow I won't be here. I have to take my son to a hospital in London, so I apologise and I'd like to ask to be excused from tomorrow if the Assembly does go on tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Deputy Renouf.
Yes, sir. I'd like to raise a point of order, understanding Order 12, regarding question 21, which I respectfully suggest was not answered in the written answer that was provided. The question requested a schedule of the Minister, and nowhere in the answer was there a reference to a time frame or an explanation as to why it might not be possible to provide a time frame. So I request a ruling from you on whether that is the case.
Thank you, Deputy. I'll give you a ruling by 9:30 tomorrow morning, understanding Order 12. Deputy Catherine Curtis.
So may I raise the depot on Deputy Southern?
Members content to raise the depot? The depot is raised on Deputy Southern. On behalf of members, I'd like to welcome His Excellency to the Chamber this morning. Members may have seen that former Deputy Simon Bree passed away earlier this month. Deputy Bree was born in Jersey and educated at Victoria College before embarking upon a career in the local finance industry, working for Reuters, the Dow Jones Telluride, and for BNP Paribas until 2006. And he began his own gardening design business. After a narrow defeat in 2011, he was elected as deputy for St Clement in 2014, the parish where he lived for most of his life. During his 4-year term, he served as chair of the Economic Affairs Scrutiny Panel from July 2015, as a member of the Privileges and Procedures Committee, and also as Vice Chairman of the Corporate Services Scrutiny Panel, which undertook a major review of the draft law legalising same-sex marriage in the island. In 2018, he unsuccessfully stood for senator, coming in 9th, and then withdrew from politics and became an authorised marriage celebrant. He came forward again in 2021 to stand as Connétable St Clement in a by-election following the death of Connétable Len Norman, and was not elected on that occasion. Our thoughts are with his widow, Nicola, his 2 children, and his extended family and friends at this sad time. I invite members to stand for a minute's reflection. May he rest in peace. Moving to the consolidated order paper, there are a number of subordinate.
Can I raise the deaf on Deputy Alves? And Southern.
It's best to wait until the presiding officer finishes speaking, but members content to raise the defo? The defo is raised. There are a number of subordinate enactments under B, another number of matters presented or laid as described under C. The following matters have been lodged under D. P6, draft income tax amendment, stage 2 of independent taxation, Jersey law. Amendment lodged on the 13th of February by Deputy Doublé. P7, ceasefire in Gaza. Amendment lodged on the 22nd of February by the Minister for External Relations. P9, Comptroller and Auditor General, Board of Governance, appointment of member, lodged on the 23rd of February by the Chief Minister. P10, cash payment at government sports facilities, lodged on the 26th of February by Deputy Stevenson. There are no matters listed under E. We now move on to F, where there are a number of appointments to be considered by the Assembly this morning. The first is selection of the Minister for Education and Lifelong Learning. In accordance with Standing Order 1172E, I invite the Chief Minister to make his nomination for that position. Chief Minister.
Thank you, sir. Good morning. I am pleased to nominate Deputy Rob Ward for the position of Minister for Education and Lifelong Learning. Thank you.
Is the nomination seconded? Yes, sir. Thank you. Are there any other nominations? Accordingly, I invite Deputy Ward to speak for up to 10 minutes, after which there'll be a period of questions for up to 20 minutes. Deputy Ward.
Thank you, sir. And just put my chair up. So first of all, I'd like to start by saying thank you for the nomination to this role. It's a very important one to me on a personal and a professional level. So I've spent the best part of my entire working life involved in the teaching profession in several capacities. And this role is another exciting opportunity for me and one that I would give my complete commitment and dedication. I would also like to thank those who have taken the role before me and reassure that I will not simply be stopping anything that came before. So I know that the education profession, one of the biggest problems over the last years, and I wrote years rather than giving a number because it could be anything between 10 or 20 years, has been constant change, be it in the curriculum, in teaching methods, and priorities set for staff rather than with them. I'm aware of this as an issue, and my leadership will not be characterised by this approach. So I will bring a realism to expectation and a pragmatism to change that will mean we can see meaningful change where it is necessary, that can be enacted with the people involved and for those who are affected by the decisions made. There were several areas that I see vital for the future. This includes the development of school meal provision across our schools, the need for replacement school facilities in central St Helier, addressing our nursery provision and making inclusion truly work in our schools and colleges. We need to focus to ensure the correct actions are taken. This includes a realistic and pragmatic approach to addressing nursery provision across age groups, the re-establishing of a respectful and positive relationship with the education profession, and developing the lifelong learning area of this remit. So we need to take an intelligent view of what we mean by lifelong learning and how this can be built using the success of our post-16 provision and build a greater understanding of the role of all apprenticeships and wider vocational education for our society and our economy. We must address the false divisions between academic and vocational education, so it simply does not work for society and the economy. I want to rebuild the relationship with the teaching profession and want to express my thanks for the resolution of the pay dispute. We can now move forward in a positive way and address wider concerns of this profession. So I fully support the split roles that creates a children's minister. I've thought this to be needed for some time in order that we can all of us, be challenged in how we address the needs of children who are the future of our island. I see no problem in working with the Minister, and so one of the first actions was to ensure that we have a weekly overlap in our meetings and to have regular and focused dialogue between ministries. So, sir, beyond 25 years of experience in education, what will I bring to the role? So I have over 6 years of experience in this Assembly. During this time, I've worked in several roles with members from across the Assembly. In addition, I've been part of building a successful and very organised party. And so I mention this for a few reasons. My political identity is important to me. I've been transparent in my beliefs and policies that I have brought forward to this Assembly. But I have also shown a real ability to work with members from very different political backgrounds and across a wide range of topics. Not easy to say. So this is vital in a ministerial role, and I'm confident I can be successful in this area. I've chaired the Children's Education and Home Affairs Scrutiny Panel. During this time, I worked with several ministers. This included the late Constable Norman, who I really enjoyed working with. So Deputy Guida once declared himself, stood just here somewhere, as the arch enemy of reform. I remember that day well. We all turned into superheroes. But sir, I had a very, very constructive and productive relationship with him when he was Home Affairs Minister and I was chair of the scrutiny panel. I highlight this because I do understand the importance of scrutiny and want the relationship to be challenging but constructive. It is important for ministers to state that in this Assembly. So my experience includes being chair of the Health and Social Security Panel, membership of Scrutiny Liaison, the Environment and Housing Panel, Future Hospital Panel, Brexit Review Panel, Legal Aid Review Panel, the Care of Children Review Panel. So I'm almost certainly have forgotten something, the roles I've undertaken. But I feel that the theme is clear. I have a wide range of experience and learn from every role that I undertake. Something that, as an educator, I certainly should be doing. So I'm very proud of my role as the chair of CPA, which I want to maintain. I value the work we do and the link with parliaments across the Commonwealth. These relationships enrich our Assembly and our island. And again, I am pleased to work across the Assembly with most members who do engage with the CPA and use its resources. I hope this will be all members by the end of this term. So I bring a range of experience and proven ability to work with all members. My work is thorough, well prepared, and I think through my decisions based on evidence and key principles linked to the task in hand. I've worked well with the staff in the GREF and hope and believe that they have enjoyed working with me, feeling supported and included in the work we have undertaken. I would extend this to the officers in the new role of Minister. We must value the staff to get the most from them as members of the team and utilise their skills to the utmost. And most importantly, sir, so that people we work with, and let's not forget, we work with people, are pleased to be part of the team that leads the island's direction. So, sir, to finish and before I answer questions, I want to reiterate my dedication to this role, my commitment to the work ahead. It may be a shorter time than expected, but I have the ambition to bring success and the ability to drive change where needed. And so I thank everyone and look forward to answering questions. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Deputy. The first question for Deputy Rob Ward is from the Conotable of St Hep.
Thank you, sir. The Deputy referred to the need to provide new facilities in the town area for primary schools. Would he accept that there have been significant changes both in demographics and in population flows since the government plan was adopted? And will he agree to undertake robust examination of the case for the new town primary before further work on it is done?
Thank you, sir. And I thank the Constable for his question. I think all the work undertaken on the planning of a new town primary school must be robust. I don't necessarily agree that the change in demographics are going to have the effect that he wants, that Constable is looking for. So the new school in St Helier is a replacement school for one and perhaps two schools that are falling apart. I, as Education Minister, cannot stand in front of this Assembly and do anything other than say we need better resources for our young people, particularly in the centre of St Helier at the moment, because they have been lacking for too long. And with the positioning of this school by a park, and if I hope so, if the Constable's actions on making walkways and green spaces within the centre of St Helier works, we will have children in the centre of town walking to school through a green space, in a green space, in a well-equipped and purpose-built school for the future. So as Education Minister, if the worst case scenario of falling demographics is over the next few years, class sizes drop from 30 to 24, I'm absolutely willing to take that on the chin, sir.
Supplementary?
Thank you, sir. With a price tag of over £40 million for the new town primary, will the Minister undertake to look at alternative ways to spend some of the capital that we have, particularly when he refers to falling down primary schools? This, of course, is news to some members who weren't aware that some of our primary schools are actually falling down. The department doesn't have a great record on maintenance. It has 36 schools already in its ownership. And will he have a careful look at the opportunities for replacement contrasted with the opportunities for maintenance and improvement? Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Yes, absolutely. There are two things here, sir. We have to maintain the schools that we have. I absolutely agree. I would invite every member of this Assembly to come with me. Not all at the same time, preferably. I go into Springfield every week, sir, and I see the reality of what they're working with there. I speak to the teachers there. I speak to the children, remarkably enough, sir, and to find out what they think. And there is a real genuine need. But there's a greater need in that area, sir. Go to Springfield School and look at how much play space they have outside. It is wholly inadequate. And we have adopted the UNCRC, I hope I've said that in the right order, criteria on the right of children to have spaces to play, yet we send our children to school without the right spaces to play. And when we do have an opportunity to change that by investing, and I hope to come back to that word, investing in our education establishment, then we seem to have people who are opposing it for what strike me as reasons that perhaps need to be thought through more clearly. So this is a complex need. But it's a need that is real, it's a need that we can accommodate, and it's a need that has been budgeted for. What I want to say, sir, is let's get on and build the appropriate building in the appropriate place at the appropriate time, and let's have the best for our children in St Helier. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Deputy. Deputy Doublé.
Thank you, sir. The previous minister had committed to over £500,000 of the education growth bids being diverted to early years. Does the minister agree that this area should continue to be focused on to deliver some nursery places, ideally for 2 to 3-year-olds initially, and will he see that funding is diverted to the area of early years?
Yes, thank you, sir, and I thank you, Deputy, for the question. And yes, the simple answer is yes, but I'll expand upon the answer. There is an issue with nurseries. There's an issue of capacity, there's an issue of need, there's an issue of cost. I'm absolutely aware of that. What I want to do, and I am developing at the moment, and it will come forward a bit later, and if I can ask for a little bit of patience on that, is a targeted, pragmatic and sensible approach that can be actually fulfilled. So I point to what's happened in the UK, and there was a real issue that what happened in the UK, the government said all 2-year-olds could have this many hours of nursery care without any provision being provided. And what that did to parents, it said to parents, there's your nursery provision. They made plans and they could not find that provision. So that is not the way to do it because it lets parents down. We need to be targeted, thoughtful about the way we're going to deliver and make it deliverable. But yes, that commitment will not change. Yes, that commitment will not change. Thank you, sir.
Supplementary?
Thank you, sir. I'm delighted to hear that those plans will continue. And will the minister commit to the 3 approaches with accessibility and affordability being key, but not forgetting the quality of the early years care delivered to children being the utmost of importance?
Yes, thank you, sir, and absolutely, and there are really 3 key points. There was an ISOS report, and so I know the Deputy was involved, so we did send the report to the Deputy, regardless of what positions people have now. I thought it was very important that you got that report, because I know you attended, I know the deputy, sorry, sir, attended and observed some of those sessions that went on. And that's absolutely correct. We need to make sure, and I've said before in this assembly, sir, that we need to let children play, but we need to let children play in a constructive and useful way so they can socialise, learn their skills, etc. And that is very early, very important in early years. And so I want to start a theme that I'm going to answer throughout my questions now. We look constantly at the cost of education. And so one of the things I want to do is hopefully change this assembly narrative on that. And I want that word to be replaced by investment. Because every penny that we invest in children, particularly young children, particularly those from the most needy backgrounds or with educational needs beyond other children, has a payback later on, which is quantifiable, but difficultly quantifiable, both in terms of the money saved in the long term, if you want to be hard-nosed about it, sir, but also qualitatively in terms of the standards and the effect on people's lives. So those targeted approaches, which we're certainly looking to do very carefully, are exactly the way forward. And I hope I will get the support of the Deputy when they come forward. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Deputy. Deputy Jeune.
Thank you, sir. Does the candidate recognise the value that the fee-paying schools add to Jersey's education system and the economy, and how does he propose to support them? And if not, why not?
Deputy.
Thank you, sir. Yes, we have a very mixed system of education on this island. It is very selective, but it's one that's grown over time. Over the last 4 years, the funding mechanisms for our state school has changed from the ALPU, the average weighted pupil unit, to the which is now a more general funding mechanism with other areas added onto it, such as linked to areas, record of need, etc., etc. The state funded schools still maintain their grant funds and a similar fund, and that does need to be looked at to see the most effective use of that money. So both my children went to JCG and Vic. Partly so because they didn't want to be at school with me, which I fully understand. And I can say publicly that the feeling was mutual, if I'm honest. But I digress. But yes, we do understand the value. But I also understand the value of all of our education establishments. And I would like to see, particularly post-16, a greater integration of the provision there so that we can get a greater provision for different courses and different specialisms across our island, particularly so as geographically all of the places are very close together. Thank you, sir.
Parliamentary.
Yes, thank you, sir. The grant agreements with Beaulieu and De La Salle will need to be renewed in September 2024. Will the candidate indicate what elements of the agreement he would be minded to amend?
Thank you, sir. Yes, I do. And the simple answer to that at the moment is I simply don't know. And the reason I would not answer that now is because that needs to be thought about extremely carefully. Work needs to be done. I said in my speech that everything I decide upon will be based upon knowledge, on data, on information. To stand up in the Assembly, this is the change that will be made, won't help the situation. But I can reassure the Deputy that we do need to look at that grant funding and the way it works. We need to look at the provision across all of our schools. But we need to do it for one reason, sir, and that's so that we can provide the best possible opportunity and experience for all of our children, regardless of which establishment they attend. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Deputy Stevenson.
Thank you, sir. There was a very useful, detailed list of what will come under the new remit of this role, and if I've read it correctly, then the youth service is included as part of that. Does the candidate believe that the current funding model for Jersey's youth clubs is fit for purpose?
Thank you, sir. And that's a very good question. I believe that the youth service will be delegated to response to one of the assistant ministers, so it gives it a focus. We don't have a statutory youth service at the moment. And that is something, if you look back, sir, at when I was chairing the Children Education Panel, we did talk about at that time. And I think the first step will be to look very carefully as to whether the youth service will be statutory, because that then changes the funding model, creates statutory funding, and I believe may well assist the youth service in what they want to do. The other side of that coin, sir, is that the youth service may want a bit more freedom from statutory funding, so that's a discussion that has to be had. I'm very supportive of the youth service, and I say again, I can go back to my theme. The investment in the youth service, sir, has impact beyond what we see day to day. And every young person that is guided away by the youth service from perhaps actions that they may regret is a benefit to this island. So I'm very supportive of the youth service.
Supplementary.
Thank you, sir. And I'm encouraged by that answer. Obviously, St Helier is still without a youth centre. What plans does the Minister have to address that?
Thank you, sir. The youth centre in St Helier is a trigger for me, sir. I have brought a amendment to the Island Bridging Plan. We had Nelson Street site plans drawn up. There have been obstacles to every single site that I put forward. So I would like to pursue a youth centre in the centre of St Helier in the best possible site. Other sites have been suggested. I've seen 3 or 4 in my time, so as a backbencher. Perhaps now, as Minister, I may be able to get a bit more clarity, a bit more drive, but there certainly is required. And so, again, the youth facilities in the centre of St Helier, where there is the greatest population, and so more and more homes being built within a concentrated area, will become more important as we go through the next few years. Because the earlier you impact on young people and give them purpose in their spare time, the better it is for St Helier and indeed for Jersey. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Deputy. Deputy Taddeo.
Thank you, sir. So last year the department launched its new language policy, and it noted that there are currently 62 languages spoken in Jersey schools. And recent figures show that there are about 3,000 multilingual learners in year from nursery to year 13, which is 26% of the school population. Will the Minister give a commitment not to roll back on the progress that has been made with the language policy to make sure that children can access home language provision for their educational needs?
Thank you, sir. And yes, I thank the Deputy for his question, because what that question did so is highlight the range that we have within our schools that are being addressed day in, day out by our highly professional education staff, and I think they need to be complemented in the way that's done. So yes, I would certainly support that provision. It's very important that home languages are supported, and they enrich our schools, they enrich our society, they enrich our environment. As somebody, sir, who's struggling to learn French at Alliance Francaise, a second language, and taking that on is good for you at all ages. And children speaking to each other in school and sharing that language experience, I think is a really healthy thing for us to have in our schools.
Supplementary.
Yes, sir. I meant to say in the original question that obviously the Minister did mention the UNCRC, and Article 30 talks about children having the right to use their own language, culture and religion, even if these are not shared by most people in the country where they live. Will the Minister also ensure that it's possible for as many students as possible who have a home language that is different to English to be able to take an exam, for example, a GCSE in their home language where possible?
Deputy.
Thank you, sir. Yeah, so it's an interesting question where you get the words ensure and where possible in the same question, because I think that's the answer to that question. Where possible, I would absolutely support that, but with 67 languages. I am also very conscious, sir, of not saying to teachers, here's something else for you to do, because we have a whole range of things going on in schools at the moment, a new PSE curriculum, physical education, physical literacy programs, a music program, a digital skills program. All of these things are being put on teachers. And at the same time, sir, the education establishment has to deliver GCSEs across the board and education that we would all expect for our children. We have to be careful as how we do that. I think what we can do, sir, is ensure that we have as much offering as we possibly can. And that has been done in an extremely intelligent way by some schools in terms of the offering of GCSE as an option when it's available to have a member of staff to teach it, or perhaps even after school if a member of staff is available in a sort of peripatetic way. So I think that provision is there. I would support it, and I would go as far as I possibly can to get that in schools wherever I can, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy. David Southern.
Thank you. Would the Minister outline what he might do to improve relations between the workforce and the government, of which we've seen recently a sad breakdown?
Thank you, sir, and I thank the Deputy for the question. The first obvious thing is we no longer have a pay dispute, which I think was really taking its toll on everyone involved. I know that that being resolved has brought a positive opportunity for us to engage with the teaching profession. One of the things I would like to see is to engage with teaching staff on the front line, not just those in leadership, to talk about what can be done to address workload, for example, what can be done to address representation. One of the things I would like to see is better trained reps in schools in representation from trade unions. I see trade unions as a very positive thing. I was part of that, and a well-trained rep with a background and a position in school can solve problems before they even start on the simplest level, but also have that engagement and make members of staff feel that they are listened to and they are valued. So that's one of the ingredients for that. The other one, sir, is just simply not overloading the curriculum constantly. We need to give teachers the respect to perform. We have a group of people who are qualified to degree level and post-degree level, and then we seem to be obsessed with telling them how to do their job. Let those professionals do their job, and let's listen to them and let them develop the skills that they have. I think that is one of the best ways to restore relationships, by trust and value in the profession.
Supplementary?
No, thank you, sir.
Deputy Wilson.
Thank you, sir. Could the candidate mention, the candidate mentioned the importance of apprenticeships and the relationship between that and the economy. And I wondered if you could state what you'll do regarding apprenticeships, particularly for 16 to 18-year-olds.
Deputy.
Thank you, sir. Yeah, it's a really good question. First of all, I think we need a clear definition of what we mean by apprenticeship, because I think what we've got is it's been a sort of label all. And there are certainly a very successful apprenticeship programme at Highlands. And I would say to the Deputy as well, sir, that talking about to 16 to 18-year-olds, I think the figure is 33%, I might be a percentage out, so forgive me, of those undertaking apprenticeships are actually over the age of 25. And so the reason we need to look at lifelong learning is the structure we have for our apprenticeships and our training in our economy needs to be able to be accessed by those throughout their lifetime, both 16-year-olds, 18-year-olds and beyond, if we're genuinely going to train our own. And I think that investment in training our own is the most effective way to deal with our skills shortage and other issues around our economy workforce. In terms of 16 to 18-year-olds, I think what we can do, I think we need to look very, very carefully at the provision that we have, particularly for, I think it's around 8% of our school population are not in education, employment or training. And that hard to get at groups, sir, that haven't been engaged previously are the ones that we really want to try and target to get back into training, into work and into that sort of provision that they can provide for themselves and be part of our society, sir, because that is a very beneficial thing to do.
Supplementary?
Thank you, sir. Based on that position then, would the candidate consider increasing the number of apprenticeships to address that particular issue in that particular population group?
Thank you, sir. I can stand up and say yes to that, sir, but I also pragmatically need to make sure that they can be catered for. And that's one of the real issues that we need to have. We cannot say we're going to do something and then do it poorly. That's the worst thing we can do. And we also need to look ahead as to what type of qualification we're going to have, particularly, for example, in health, how we're going to train carers, how we're going to train nurses. There are courses in place at the moment. We need to build upon what we have there. Also, sir, and I will mention this, we have to look at the changing landscape within the UK as to what they're providing. T levels in the UK are in their infancy. We are... Is that it? Okay.
It was the end of a sentence, I think. As there were no other nominations and the period for the speech and questions has been completed, I can confirm Deputy Rob Ward has been appointed Minister for Education and Lifelong Learning. In accordance with Standing Order 121, the Assembly is due to appoint a new President of the Scrutiny Liaison Committee. I invite members to make nominations for President of that committee from amongst the chairs of the Scrutiny Panels and Public Accounts Committee.
Could I propose Deputy...
Well, I hadn't called upon you. I must go in accordance with the lights in front of me, the first of which was Deputy Dubney.
Thank you, sir. I'd like to propose Deputy Ina Gardner for this role.
Is that nomination seconded?
Yes, sir.
Deputy Taddeo.
I'll try and get in earlier, sir, in future. Could I propose Deputy Catherine Curtis, please?
Is that nomination seconded? Yes, sir. Are there any other nominations? Thank you. In accordance with Standing Order 121, I'll invite candidates to speak and answer questions in the order in which they were nominated, starting therefore with Deputy Gardner. Candidates will speak for up to 10 minutes and then have up to 20 minutes of questions. In accordance with the regime you're all aware of, I invite Deputy Catherine Curtis to now withdraw from the chamber and to go to the allocated quiet room. Deputy Gardner.
Thank you, sir. First of all, I would like to start by thanking outgoing Scrutiny Liaison Committee for their work under presidency of Deputy Mezek. The role of the President of the Scrutiny Liaison Committee is to liaise with each other, with the Assembly, and with the government, to communicate and coordinate. As the chair of the Public Accounts Committee, I have overview on all government business, working closely with the Controller and Auditor General. Also, my previous experience on the Scrutiny Liaison Committee at previous term, chair of the Public Accounts Committee, member of several scrutiny panels. I'm grateful for Deputy Ward reminding me some panels that we worked together in the previous term, Brexit, COVID, Future Hospital. I think that this collective memory, my experience in previous term and understanding also the executive side, I believe give me the skills to lead positive and effective work between scrutiny, government and the Assembly. We will finalize the work that is in progress, and you have my commitment that we will make sure that work started by previous committee will be continued, as well as we create a plan for the next 2 years. The committee keeps under review the overall operation of scrutiny as appropriate, makes recommendation for change while maintaining contact with the Council of Ministers, so that respective work program would be known and will be discussed. The committee coordinates work of the panel to ensure there is no overlap between panels. Joint cross-panels reviews are important to make effective, avoid duplication, and support work for breaking silos. We will review particular proposals, issues, projects that coming outside of the panels and making sure that our recommendations will be joint, will be practical, and we can discuss this as well with the government. And like an effective body, part of achieving these things, it's having to have good coordination and good organization, and I hope I do have these skills and be happy to implement them. Second part, communication. It's extremely important that we'll communicate respectfully. We will not have surprises. If we have issues, we will raise and we will discuss. We work collaboratively, and I hope members can recognize my collaborative approach and trying to find the best possible way forward. We might not agree all the time, but it's really important to discuss and to work together on it. And I also recognize the challenges from the executive side. because all parts of us have our own challenges, and if we recognize them, we can find the way forward. We need to have a common dialogue and understand each other. Scrutiny does not act as a political opposition. It's not a political role, and political ideology has very little to do with the scrutiny. I'll always emphasize the positives when we found in the review, and it's important really to say this works well, and these are our area for improvement, and let's find the right way to improve. Also, as a president, I would like that ministers would be successful, and my engagement will be constructive to meet, discuss matters, and all of us, all us colleagues, would like to have the better for the island. In the past, I have encouraged my committee members and members to take a lead, and I think it's extremely important as we work together as a scrutiny that will empower all members of scrutiny, that everyone would have an opportunity to challenge himself or herself and to find new options and to find the new ways. As scrutiny, we should be a team and important to work together. We will disagree sometime. This is also critical for good scrutiny. How we use our internal disagreement for the benefit, I always believe from the right discussion creates new and different ways forward and solutions. And together with all members of Scrutiny Liaison Committee, and I believe that each chair of the Scrutiny Liaison Committee can be president, and I believe that we will work collaboratively together and hope to have different also areas of responsibility. It's important to use strengths of each member of the team. In the past, I pioneered new ways of working on scrutiny and planning to do it again. One of the other areas that's important for me to mention is engagement with the public. I mentioned assembly, I mentioned government, I mentioned members, but public is there with us, for us. We are serving the public and their input is important. I respect the democracy of this assembly, and I'm prepared to work with any member in order to achieve good outcomes for the public. In all my roles over the last 5 years, I think I have strived to be effective, objective, and collaborative operator, and I would bring those skills and collective memory to the role of the presidency for Scrutiny Liaison Committee. I'm looking forward for your questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Gardner. Do we now have questions for Deputy Gardner? Deputy Chair.
Thank you, sir. What importance does the candidate place on scrutiny's relationship with the public, and how does she envisage fostering and enhancing this relationship during her tenure, if elected?
Thank you for the question. And as I mentioned during my speech, engagement with the public is extremely important. We have used different options. We had our stalls in the public that public can approach us directly. We've sent direct letters to the stakeholders to engage with them and ask for their opinion. We had private and public hearing. And I think we started to use more with the new team, and thank you for the GRAF team, engagement team, social media, because at the previous term, I think we used less, we can use it more. And the most important, I would also like to hear from the members of the assembly that are connected in the parishes and engage us with the parishes, because sometimes when we have a stall in St. Helena, it doesn't reach out. Maybe we can come more to the parish halls and have engagement with the public there as well.
Supplementary? Any other questions for Deputy Gardner? Deputy Wilson.
Thank you, sir. Can the Deputy explain how Can the Deputy explain how she will prioritise the work of the committee and what qualities she feels she will need to bring to this particular responsibility?
Deputy.
Thank you. First of all, the prioritization will be done on initial stage on the Scrutiny Liaison Committee. We need to work collaboratively and we need to work together and have our discussion. Also, I envisage day away for all scrutiny members, because I believe that members of the scrutiny panel can bring their views, and based on joint collective understanding of the priorities, we can decide what our priorities is scrutiny. But there is another step for me in that. I would like, as the president of the Scrutiny Legacy Committee, who will be my vice chair, to meet with the chief minister, that this is what our thoughts, this is what our priorities, what our views, what will come in your way from the government. And I think it's really important that we work collaboratively and create our program according to the joint priorities between what public telling us, what the members of the assembly, and what's the government. And I think one of another things I would like to mention, there were 2 scrutiny review panels, Future Hospital, and we know this will be the biggest project, and we would need to continue to have this review panel. And also assisting that in this legislation, I think it will be one of the most emotional, complex legislation that this assembly will need to deal with, and I do believe that it needs to be also cross-panel review.
Thank you. Supplementary. Betty Moore.
Thank you, sir. In her speech, the candidate suggested and referred to the power of cross-cutting review panels. Does the deputy have any ideas about what topics those review panels might cover?
Deputy.
Thank you for the deputy for her questions. There are several options for the like I said, the 2 cross-review panels that needs to continue. It's the Future Hospital panel, our hospital panel, and the assistant dean. Also, there was a review for the work permits, and the work needs to be finalized. There are lots of themes in the air, but I think what's really, if we are speaking about the wind, if we are speaking about the birth rates, if we are speaking about machinery of government, there's different options. And I would welcome input from the members into the pot of the ideas before we'll finalize.
Thank you. Are there any more questions for Deputy Gardner? Constable St Mary.
Thank you, sir. I think the candidate already answered this question. In determining the review panels, sorry, sir. Yes, the candidate may have answered this question already, but in determining her choice or the panel's choice of members of a review panel, which confirms she will look beyond the actual members of the liaison committee itself, because I sometimes believe that there's been a tendency to keep the decision-making within the liaison committee, which I do not think is necessarily good.
Thank you. It's a very good question. Thank you for his question. Absolutely, yes. And I believe even if a member, not a member of any review, of any scrutiny panel, and has a passion and interest for specific topic, I would welcome to engage with us, to come forward, and definitely will support members with the passion and their options to progress with the reviews, obviously in coordination with all stakeholders. Also, what we would need to keep in mind that we will work, and I'm always grateful for the GRAF staff that's supporting our work. And on top of this, if the member comes with the idea, would like to lead a review, but we don't have enough specialists in this area, I'm looking to engage with people outside of the normal list.
Thank you. Supplementary? Any further questions for... Yes, Deputy Collins.
Thank you, sir. Could the candidate outline how she deal with conflicts that arise within scrutiny panels?
Thank you, Deputy, for his question. I think this is one of my specialities, how I deal with the conflicts, and I believe that if we can get together and to understand what is important and what is must and what is the need, and to listen to each other, we can talk through. It goes how you hold respectively difficult conversations. I train people for this, I'm trained to do this, and I hope I manage to have difficult conversation in a respectful way with members before, and I will support members to do it forward.
there are no further questions for Deputy Gardner, then this period of questions has come to an end. And I invite Deputy Gardner to leave the chamber and ask that Deputy Curtis be brought back in. Deputy Curtis, when you're ready.
Thank you, sir. I'd like to start by saying I'm feeling very positive about the new Scrutiny Liaison Committee. We have a great wealth of knowledge and experience among our members. Because two of us are standing for the position of President is no indication of division. It's just that two of us feel we could effectively lead the committee and would be happy to do so. Whatever the outcome of the vote today, I think the committee will continue to operate well. The advantage I offer is, above all, continuity. I'm the only continuing panel chair and member of SLC. Following the vote of no confidence, there's been much change and some work has been delayed. It's in all of our interest to minimise that disruption. I'm the only member of SLC to have been part of the previous work. As an example, I give you assisted dying. The old SLC received briefings and discussed this matter with the previous health minister. Very complex and extraordinarily important issues. Just before the vote of no confidence, the past chair of the Health Scrutiny Panel had started to organise a review. Then the vote of no confidence happened and everything stopped. In the intervening period, I discussed this with the officer to see if there could be some momentum. But we've had to wait for the new SLC to be formed to recreate the assisted dying panel. I feel it's important for me to be a member of the new panel for reasons of continuity. I'm the only SLC member to have been through the earlier briefing process, and it would be wasteful for all that discussion and information to come to nothing. So I hope I've explained with this example how important continuity can be. And of course, there is other work which was ongoing. That's just one example. Another is the Future Hospital Review Panel. They produced an interim report shortly before the changes following the vote of no confidence. There is plenty more to be done on this subject, and this panel needs to be reconstituted. There are matters of transparency around financing, communication between ministers, and process clarity in parts of the project to be considered. Thirdly, another review with work which is close to completion is the Work Permit Holder Review Panel. The panel presented its report and is waiting for some final feedback. This panel did great work in highlighting issues which were impacting people's lives and which were not benefiting our economy. I'm proud to say that I encouraged the setup of this panel, which was first discussed among my CEHA panel members before going to SLC for approval. And lastly, we have discussed the need for a review panel on the proposed wind farm. This will be led by members from the Environment and Economy Scrutiny panels. While on the subject of wind farms, members may have noticed some publicity in the media recently around wind farms and more generally around climate change. There have been numerous letters and an article in the JEP berating me for stating that an organisation which is currently under investigation by the Charities Commission and which is at odds with scientific consensus and our finance industry's sustainable aims should not be given special access to States members in the States building. I've spoken out in favour of this organisation holding public meetings, but still I've been accused of being a totalitarian, shameful, a far-left activist, and I'm not far-left, and masquerading as an environmentalist. I mention this to demonstrate to members that I'm not afraid to speak out. I always try to keep in mind that we are all here to represent and act on behalf of the public of Jersey. And however uncomfortable it seems, we must speak out when we see misinformation, poor practice, or lack of policy. This is essential for good scrutiny and essential for the President of SLC. Talking of good scrutiny, I'd like to thank my fellow CEHA panel members while I have the opportunity. During my time as chair, we have brought and have had accepted important amendments to the CSP and government plan. Through our work, we have seen what's missing in the island and what's needed most urgently. And so we have brought amendments for free GP visits for children, for the extension of funded nursery care, and for more sports facilities in the east of the island. We will soon be completing reviews on the Children and Civil Status Law and on education funding, have published many comments papers, and done a lot of work on legislative scrutiny. I hope members will see that during my time as panel chair, I've led a happy and effective team. Also, as CEHA chair, I've passed on concerns to more appropriate panels, for example, on the management of the Criminal Offences Confiscation Fund. And I'm lucky enough to be the chair of the Ecology Fund, and with my team of extremely knowledgeable trustees, we have funded essential work for the environment, including many small PhD projects. It's a real pleasure to see young people succeed in their work, producing valuable information for the island. And as a member of the Legislative Advisory Panel, I've had an insight into more of the government side of things. I say all this to demonstrate that I have always tried to take a broad outlook as a States member and would continue to do so as the President of SLC. In fact, during my time on the previous SLC, I asked for briefings to the committee on subjects including the operation of Statistics Jersey and the management of Jersey's funds. The purpose of this was to help expand our knowledge and give the committee members the opportunity to raise any concerns. During my time in scrutiny, I've always attempted to act as an impartial chair and not as a party member. We all have allegiances, all have ideologies or beliefs, if we prefer to call them that. My aim in scrutiny is to leave aside ideology and take a pragmatic approach to every matter. Scrutiny is not a political opposition, and members can be assured that as SLC President, I would have no desire to act as an opposition, but rather as a critical friend. My aim would be for SLC to be a base for discussion, for it to be strategic, for every member to be involved. Formerly, the SLC President and Vice President had meetings each month with the Chief Minister. I would like to alter these meetings slightly in that different members of SLC would accompany the President to these meetings so that each member would gain valuable insight and have the opportunity to communicate directly with the Chief Minister. I would support members' training. For example, a visit to the Scottish Government to examine their methods of scrutiny could be beneficial. There are other matters which SLC were working on which should be continued. I have the knowledge and experience to ensure the continuity of these projects. We need to continue to raise the matter of the Ombudsman, the lack of freedom of information on ALOs, and changes to the Jersey Appointments Commission, for example. I've already been in contact with the JAC, and we are currently arranging a briefing from the Controller and Auditor General. As for engagement of SLC with the public, I would like to invite more people in to speak to us, for example, the Association of Jersey Charities, and would be keen for us to hold the occasional meeting in a public place, such as our parish halls. Although the meeting would be private, members could stay behind should any member of the public wish to talk to us. We will, of course, continue our engagement in schools and in town. I'm known to be brief when I speak, so I thank members for listening to this long speech from me. I ask members to vote for me to be SLC President. I believe that my knowledge and experience, both from within and outside of the States Assembly, would enable me to do a good job. And I welcome any questions.
Thank you, Deputy Curtis. Constable St Mary, I didn't want to interrupt Deputy Curtis during her speech, but I think your machine went off.
So is the ledge, sir. I will accept that, sir.
Would you want to stand up when you address it? It's not the first time. I think it's the second or third time it's gone off this morning. Is that right?
I still don't quite understand if it is mine, how it has happened.
Well, I think it's yours.
Okay, I don't dispute.
I can see some nodding in the vicinity. So I think you need to make the normal financial contribution and also to take steps to ensure that it doesn't happen again this morning. Because I think the first time it happened was during the words of tribute to the deceased, recently deceased States member, which is regrettable. I think that was the first time it went off. So it's important that we make sure these machines don't go off during the meeting of the Assembly. Thank you. The first question is from Deputy Wilson.
Thank you, sir. Can the candidate explain how she will prioritise, given the scope that she's just outlined, how she will prioritise the work of the SLC?
Yes, thank you for the question. The broad aims of SLC is to make sure that all the scrutiny panels work well, that they don't overlap in their work, to make sure the budget is there, and any other support for scrutiny chairs. So that is the priority overall. And then also there's the very important need to examine the work of the Council of Ministers. So those are the two broad aims. After that, it would be a matter of ensuring public engagement and anything else like that. But most of all, to make sure that panel chairs are supported and that we scrutinise all work from the Council of Ministers.
Supplementary?
Yes, thank you, sir. Could the candidate explain what kind of support she considers will be important for the chairs and what this might look like?
Firstly, I think that the scrutiny chairs have to feel comfortable in the Scrutiny Liaison Committee meetings. We have to be open to discussion. We've had one meeting already, which went well, and so I think that would be a real priority to make sure everyone feels comfortable to be able to speak freely in the meetings. As for other more practical support, we've got great officers already, and I believe we have enough staff, but if there's ever any suggestion of a shortage, of course, we'd address that. And, you know, at every scrutiny liaison meeting, when someone is considering starting a review, then they bring that information to us, prepare a scoping document in terms of reference. So we all need to be able to openly discuss that comfortably and give our feedback.
Thank you. Deputy Stern.
Thank you, sir. The candidate has already alluded in her speech to the importance of scrutiny's relationship with the public, but how does she envisage fostering and enhancing this relationship further during her tenure, if elected?
Well, I think during the last Scrutiny Liaison Committee, we engaged with the public a fair amount. We had stalls in town. We've been into schools, and I think these are very important things to continue with. I did say that I would like to ask in more speakers to our committee meetings who have a broad remit that covers many different areas. I think also possibly having meetings in a public place occasionally could raise our profile. I know just shortly before the vote of no confidence, the digital and engagement team did have a new plan they wanted to put into place. So I would support that.
Supplementary? David Talia.
I think it follows on from that question. Can the candidate say, can she explain, because part of the role will be to deal with external organisations, members of the public and third parties, what experience she's had either before being a States member or on scrutiny in that kind of engagement?
Yes, I mean, during my time as scrutiny chair, of course, we've dealt with outside organisations, you know, for example, organisations like Brighter Futures, which are amazing. It's really important to engage with leaders of different organisations. In my time before the States Assembly, I've run, I think it's about 6 or 7 businesses, one of them being an international business. And we had to engage frequently with different organisations. I was invited to be a speaker in London at certain events. I think I have a really broad, great breadth of experience in dealing with outside organisations.
Supplementary? Dr. Mazek.
Thank you, sir. Could the candidate explain what engagement, if any, she's had with the Jersey Youth Parliament in the various roles that she's held, and what importance she regards the Scrutiny Liaison Committee having to the right of children to have their voice heard, and if she'd consider any engagement with SLC and the Jersey Youth Parliament?
Yes, I think that's essential. And the Jersey Youth Parliament, it is amazing in what they do, what they say. During my time as the CEHA panel chair, we've really valued any of the feedback we've got from young people. I can't really downplay this. I think it's absolutely essential.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? Yes, Deputy Andrews.
Thank you, sir. I was wondering whether the candidate could explain what she did previously when a fellow member of the Scrutiny Liaison Committee was unable to recruit members, and what assistance did she provide to her fellow chair, and would there be anything that she would do differently moving forward in her capacity as President of the Scrutiny Liaison Committee?
Deputy.
I think it's difficult. It's a common difficulty for chairs to be able to fill their panels. This is not down to one particular member. However, we did have some struggles there, and what was done was that the president of the panel, went through any process, followed any process that was practical to assist. As a fellow member on that panel, it wasn't my duty to try and change this. It was the president's duty to do that. But, I mean, if there anything I could do, I would do. And in my role as the president, should I be elected, I'd be interested to look into what more we could do to support members in that position. It does seem to be a bit of an ongoing problem. And so that's why I've been very grateful for my own panel members.
Supplementary?
Yes, yeah. Thank you, sir. Is there potentially maybe a lesson that can be learnt from this? In one instance, a chair proposed that lay members be introduced to their scrutiny panel, and probably at that point, sir, the individual is probably not going to then recruit politicians to their panel. So is there potential lessons that can be learnt, and retrospectively, is there anything that maybe the candidate could have done differently, and would she also act differently moving forward in future in her capacity as President of the Scrutiny Liaison Committee?
Deputy.
I don't know what people could have done differently. As for lay members on panels, we have to remember that the people of Jersey have elected us to represent them, not lay members. So it's our duty to do that and to try and sort out the problem when we find it's hard to get enough panel members. So something definitely that needs to be looked into more. As for the lay members that are on PAC, that's a different matter because they're looking back at what's already been done and examining finances. And I think that there's been some very good lay members of PAC. And I think that should continue as long as they don't speak on matters in that committee which they are conflicted with. But otherwise, I think that should continue, but not for other scrutiny panels.
Thank you. Are there any further questions for Deputy Curtis? In that case, that brings that time for questions to an end. I invite Deputy Gardner to be brought back into the chamber. As both candidates have spoken and answered questions, we now move to the vote. As there are two candidates, the electronic voting system shall be used. Any member wishing to vote for Deputy Gardner will, when the voting is open, press the pour button. Any member wishing to vote for Deputy Catherine Curtis will press the contra button. Members may abstain if they wish by pressing the abstention button. I invite members to return to their seats and the greffier to open the voting. If all members have the opportunity of casting their votes, then I ask the greffier to close the voting. I can announce the result of the vote is as follows. Deputy Gardner, 25 votes. Deputy Catherine Curtis, 16 votes and 3 abstentions. Therefore, I announce Deputy Gardner has been elected President.
I'm grateful for the Assembly and I welcome in your ideas about reviews.
In accordance with Standing Order 122, the Assembly is due to appoint members of the Privileges and Procedures Committee. In accordance with Standing Order 1221, the Chair must make 3 nominations of the PPC who are not ministers or assistant ministers. Chair.
Thank you, sir. I would like to just note my thanks to my previous committee who have fallen away, obviously, with the vote of no confidence. And I would like to nominate Deputy Lucy Stevenson, Deputy Tom Coles and Deputy Steve Iyer. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Are those nominations seconded? Yes, sir. Are there any other nominations?
Yes, I would like to nominate Deputy Jonathan Reniff.
Is that nomination seconded? Are there any other nominations? Deputy Dublé.
I'd like to nominate Deputy Karen Wilson, please, sir.
Is that nomination seconded? Thank you. Are there any other nominations? Honourable St Martin.
So is this a time to also say that there's members who've been nominated from the Council of Ministers?
That's a bit later on.
Yeah, thank you.
We'll come to that in a moment. So any other nominations for members of the PPC who are not ministers or assistant ministers? No? In that case, we have 5 candidates for 3 places, and we now go to a secret ballot. I invite the ushers to distribute ballot papers.
Sorry, sir, would you mind repeating the names?
Yes, I'm
Would
going
you
to do
mind-
that
Oh, sorry.
in a moment, but thank you for reminding me in case I was going to forget. Now, the candidates are Deputy Stevenson, Deputy Coles, Deputy Ayer, Deputy Reniff, and Deputy Wilson. And I'll repeat that again in a moment. Now, this is a secret ballot. Members do not need to put their name on the ballot slip unless, of course, you are one of the candidates, in which case you may wish to. So members, I hope should all have a ballot paper, and to remind you, the candidates are Deputy Stevenson, Deputy Coles, Deputy Ayer, Deputy Reniff, and Deputy Wilson. And you must choose up to 3, yes. 1, 2, or 3. If all members have cast their votes, I ask that the ballot papers be collected. Perhaps there's, I think some of you are still writing. All members cast their votes? Yes, you can collect the ballot papers.
To do a bit of theatre.
Yeah, should we start nothing in? Thank you. Yes.
Nothing on the sleeves. There is no round.
Now, if all members have had the opportunity of casting their votes, then the assistant greffier will retire with the Viscount to undertake the count. Viscount's on his way, I understand. Thank you. Thank you. Whilst the votes are counted, I invite the chair of PPC to nominate 2 further members of PPC from amongst the ministers and assistant ministers you having consulted with the Chief Minister.
Thank you, sir. Yes, I've consulted with the Chief Minister and I would like to nominate Deputy Karina Elves and Constable Mike Jackson. Thank you, sir.
Are those nominations seconded? Are there any other nominations from amongst ministers and assistant ministers? No? Accordingly, I announce that Deputy Alves and the Connétables and Brelard have been appointed members of PPC. Now, I don't know, Chair, if you're in a position to nominate a further member of PPC from amongst the membership of the Scrutiny Liaison Committee.
Because the President has only just been
Yes,
appointed.
I thought you'd say that.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much. We now move on to appointment of elected members of the Public Accounts Committee. In accordance with Standing Order 123, the Assembly is due to appoint members of the PAC who are elected members. Standing Order 124 deals with unelected members for PAC, which requires notice to be given 14 days before the meeting. That cannot happen today, but I invite Deputy Gardner to make her nominations for elected members of PAC. Deputy Gardner.
Thank you, sir. I would like to nominate, in the first instance, Deputy Wilson and Deputy Kovac, please.
Sorry, Deputy Wilson and Deputy Kovac. Deputy Wilson and Deputy Kovac. Thank you very much. Are those nominations seconded?
Yes, sir.
Are there any other nominations? Accordingly, I declare that Deputy Wilson and Deputy Kovac are appointed members of the Public Accounts Committee. We now move on to appointment of members of the Corporate Services Scrutiny Panel. In accordance with Standing Order 125, I invite the Chair, Deputy Miles, to indicate the number of members she is seeking for her panel and the nominations. Deputy Miles.
Thank you, sir, and thank you to members who have been in touch with me regarding this panel. I'd like to nominate 5 members, please. That would be Conatable David Johnson, Deputies Andrews, Alex Curtis, Lucy Stevenson and Jonathan Renouf.
I didn't manage to get the first name. I've got the other 4.
Conatable Johnson, sir.
Yes. Conatable St Mary. So the nominations you make are the Conatable St Mary, Deputy Andrews, Deputy Alex Curtis, Deputy Stevenson and Deputy Renouf. Are those nominations seconded?
Yes, sir.
Are there any other nominations? If there are no other nominations, I declare that the Conatable St Mary, Deputy Andrews, Deputy Alex Curtis, Deputy Stevens and Deputy Renouf are appointed members of the Corporate Services Scrutiny Panel. I'll move on to members of the Economic and International Affairs Scrutiny Panel. And understanding Order 125, I invite the Chair, Deputy Tadier, to indicate the number of members he is seeking for the panel and the nominations. Deputy Tadier.
Thanks, sir. Yeah, if I could also just thank members who have engaged and expressed an interest on joining either now or in future, and the ones who have agreed to join immediately. In no particular order are Deputy Southern, Deputy Andrews and Deputy Wilson, whom I would like to nominate to join the panel.
So you nominate Deputy Southern, Deputy Andrews and Deputy Wilson, is that right? And are those nominations seconded? Are there any other nominations? There are no other nominations, so I declare that Deputy Southern, Deputy Andrews and Deputy Wilson are appointed members of the Economic and International Affairs Scrutiny Panel. We now move on to appointment of members of the Environment, Housing and Infrastructure Scrutiny Panel. In accordance with Standing Order 125, I invite the Chair, Deputy Joan, to indicate the number of members she is seeking for the panel and to make her nominations. Deputy Joan.
Thank you, sir. I'd like to thank all members who approached me to have roles on this panel, and I would like to nominate 4 members for the panel, which will be Deputy Coles, Deputy Curtis, Deputy War and Conatable of St Mary's.
Can you identify which Deputy Curtis you refer to?
Oh, sorry, Alex Curtis. That's very important. Sorry, sir.
So Deputy Coles, Deputy Curtis, Alex Curtis and the other 2, sorry?
Deputy War and Conatable of St Mary's.
So are those nominations seconded?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Are there any other nominations? Thank you. In those circumstances, I declare that Deputy Coles, Deputy Alex Curtis, Deputy War and the Conatable of St Mary are appointed members of the Environment, Housing and Infrastructure Scrutiny Panel. We now move on to members of the Health and Social Security Scrutiny Panel. In accordance with Standing Order 125, I invite the Chair, Deputy Dublé, to indicate the number of members she is seeking for the panel and to make her nominations. Deputy Dublé.
Thank you, sir. I would like to nominate 3 members for this panel, and first of all to thank members who have expressed an interest and to remind the Assembly that it is not only the core members of the panel who can take part in the work of the panel, but backbench members, there is the ability to be co-opted for reviews, so if members do have specific interests, please do come and talk to me. In alphabetical order, I would like to nominate Deputy Balash, Deputy Renouf and Deputy Stevenson.
So the nominations are Deputy Balash, Deputy Renouf and Deputy Stevenson. Are the nominations seconded? Are there any other nominations? Accordingly, I can announce that Deputy Balash, Deputy Breniff and Deputy Stevenson have been appointed members of the Health and Social Security Scrutiny Panel. In accordance with Standing Order 125A, the Assembly is due to appoint additional members of the Planning Committee. Conatap of Trinity, in accordance with Standing Order 125A1, you've indicated you wish to appoint an additional 2 members. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. I'd like to nominate Deputy IA and the Constable of Grouville.
Are those nominations seconded?
Yes, sir.
Are there any other nominations? Deputy Gardner?
I would like to nominate Deputy Moore.
Is that nomination seconded? Yes, sir. Are there any other nominations? Deputy Moore?
Sir, I would like to nominate Deputy Jean.
Is that nomination seconded? Yes. Are there any other nominations? In that case, we move to a secret ballot. The wheels might fall off if we try and do 2 at once, but we can circulate the ballot papers, but we can't fill the boxes. So that will occur now, and I'll remind members that the candidates are Deputy Ayer, the Conatap of Grouville, Deputy Moore and Deputy Jean. It is a secret ballot, so members should not write their names unless, of course, they are candidates, and members can vote for 1 or 2 of the candidates. There are 2 vacancies.
So would you please remind us names and how many names can we?
Yes, the candidates for the Planning Committee, there being 2 vacancies, are Deputy Ayer, the Conatap of Grouville, Deputy Moore and Deputy Jean. The ballot box is empty, and if members have cast their votes, the usher will collect them in the ballot box you've just seen. all members have the chance of casting their votes in the ballot box. Then I invite the Assistant Greffier to retire with the Viscount to carry out a count. Returning for a moment to the appointment of members of the Privileges and Procedures Committee, the 3 members who are not ministers or assistant ministers, the outcome of the secret ballot is as follows. Deputy Ayer, 27 votes. Deputy Stevenson, 25 votes. Deputy Coles, 23 votes. Deputy Renouf, 21 votes. Deputy Wilson, 18 votes. And therefore, Deputy Ayer, Deputy Stevenson and Deputy Coles have been elected to members as members of the PPC. Now we move on to the election of an associate member to represent the States of Jersey on the British-Irish Parliamentary Assembly. The Assembly is due to elect an associate member. Ministers and assistant ministers cannot be nominated. I invite nominations from the Assembly for elections of an associate member of the British-Irish Parliamentary Assembly. Connétable St John.
I'd like to propose Deputy Jean.
Deputy Jean is proposed. Is that nomination second? Thank you. Deputy Rob Ward.
Thank you, sir. May I propose Deputy Tom Coles? Thank you, sir.
Deputy Tom Coles. Is that nomination seconded? Yes, sir. Are there any other nominations? Thank you. In that case, we proceed with a secret ballot. And I invite the usher and the greffier to distribute ballot papers. Members should only write the name of the member whom they wish to elect as an associate member, either Deputy Jean or Deputy Coles. So once members have cast their votes, the usher will collect them in the ballot box.
Last time I went when they held one of the golf tournaments, what's the European golf tournament called, against America? Ryder Cup. They held the Ryder Cup there, this country is had a dinner with the president and the director of Sinn Féin and the person in charge of the others. It's really quite interesting.
I have not. It's not my favourite colour. They'd be purple if it was. It's what we had in the cupboard.
We'll keep that in the chamber. Yes. So, if all members have had the opportunity of casting their votes in the ballot box, members, please, we will keep that box in the chamber until the outstanding vote is announced, and then it can be counted, just to make sure there's no risk of the two boxes becoming mixed up. There are no matters under G or H. There are a number of written questions to which answers have been provided. We now come to oral questions on notice, and the first question Deputy Wall will put to the Minister for Housing and Communities. Deputy Wall.
Thank you, sir. Further to his commitment to bringing in new protections for tenants in residential legislation, including open-ended tenancies as the default, will the Minister provide statistical evidence that confirms that revenge evictions are a systemic problem on the island?
Minister.
No, sir. Statistics on revenge evictions are not and cannot be collected for all of the same reasons that my predecessor explained or had explained for him during the residential tenancy law consultation. By the nature of what a revenge eviction is, it is axiomatic that statistical data could not be put together, but we can put plenty of anecdotal evidence together. Exhibit A, my email inbox. We also have testimonies from Citizens Advice and in the Environmental Health Department. And sir, the mere existence of Article 6 of the Residential Tenancy Law shows that revenge evictions are possible without any requirement for them to be registered anywhere. So my predecessor cited several of these when he published the Residential Tenancy Law consultation, with a proposal that action be taken as part of that process to protect tenants from revenge evictions. I maintain the commitment of my predecessor in that regard.
Supplementary?
Yes, sir. In the findings document that reflects the feedback from the 2023 consultation on the new residential tenancy law proposals, it states that the draft law will be published for further consultation ahead of being debated by the States Assembly in 2024. Is that the intention of the current Housing Minister, and if not, why not?
Minister.
Yes.
Any further questions for the Minister in relation to this question? Question 2, Deputy Brenner will put to the Chief Minister. Deputy Brenner.
Thank you, sir. Will the Chief Minister advise what his plans are for bringing forward a new common strategic policy and state whether he intends to amend the Government Plan 2024 to 2027?
Chief Minister.
Thank you, sir. The new Council of Ministers is required to bring forward its common strategic policy within 4 months of taking office, but we are aiming to do that, sir, in a slightly shortened time frame. Work is underway. We do not plan to change the government plan that was approved by this Assembly in December 2023, sir, although we may wish to reprioritise some spending within the current expenditure envelope, sir. Of course, members will know that we are obliged to lodge a government plan every year, and this will be lodged in accordance with the normal timescales. Thank you.
Supplementary?
Yes, sir. Could the Chief Minister state whether it is his intention to produce ministerial plans as was done under the previous government?
Chief Minister.
We haven't decided that yet, so we've been looking at the previous ministerial plans and the previous common strategic policy and looking at the work that's been done there. And looking at the, and can I say some of the good work that's been done by the previous government. So we're still balancing that to see what we're going to bring forward. So I can't give an answer on that just yet, sir. Thank you.
Stevenson.
Thank you, sir. Can the Chief Minister explain the process that has been followed so far to develop what has been developed so far of the new CSP and whether all ministers have contributed to it?
We're in the early stages of that, sir. I believe we've had 2 meetings of the full Council of Ministers. And we have another meeting planned for Thursday and a number of other meetings after that, sir. I believe all ministers have been present. I think there might have been 1 or 2 apologies sent, sir. But I will ensure that all ministers are involved in the compilation of the plan, and it won't be presented until Council of Ministers is content and happy to support it, sir. Thank you.
Supplementary?
Sir, is there a time frame on when it may be brought to the Assembly?
Well, sir, we have 4 months. We're the best part of a month into that. I would like to bring it forward before the 4-month period is up, sir. So I would say 6 to 8 weeks would be realistic, but reserve our position on that because we want to make sure we get it right. Thank you.
Can I ask a point of clarification, sir?
Well, as long as it's not another question.
Well, is it 6 to 8 weeks from now or 6 to 8 weeks, having said that we've already are a month into it?
Yes, Chief Minister. Do you want to clarify that?
6 to 8 weeks from now, sir, I would predict. At tops.
Thank you. Any further questions? Deputy Brenner, final supplementary.
Yes, sir. Thank you. When the Chief Minister develops the Common Strategic Policy with his colleagues, will it be his intention to use it as a basis for collective responsibility within the Council of Ministers? Could he outline his thoughts on whether that, on how strict, shall we say, he will be enforcing a policy of collective responsibility based on the Common Strategic Policy?
Thank you, sir. I plan to work with the Council of Ministers on a merit-based system. So we have a Council of Ministers that I think represents a good political balance of this Assembly and the island, sir, and ministers are clear that we have to have good debates around the Council of Ministers table, and we have to win the debates on their merit to deliver the best outcomes for islanders, sir. I have never been a supporter of collective responsibility in our system, sir, and I believe members and ministers should be given the choice, sir, to vote freely wherever possible. Having said that, unity in the Council of Ministers and with all ministers is important, sir, so I hope we can reach compromise and support each other when we bring propositions to the Assembly. Thank you. But I won't be enforcing full collective responsibility, sir, mainly because we don't have a legal mandate to do that. Thank you.
Before we move to question 3, I can announce the outcome of the election for appointment of members of the Planning Committee as follows. Deputy Ayer, 30 votes. Conatap of Greville, 21 votes. Deputy Moore, 16 votes. Deputy Jern, 13 votes. So Deputy Ayer and the Conatap of Greville have been appointed as members of the Planning Committee. And members will note that the ballot box in relation to the associate member to represent the states of the British Irish Parliament Assembly has now left the chamber and is in the process of being counted.
Sorry, are you able to just clarify those numbers once more again? I thought I misheard.
Yes. Deputy Ayer, 30 votes. Conatap of Greville, 21. Deputy Moore, 16. Deputy Jern, 13. Question 3, Deputy Andrews will put to the Minister for International Development. Deputy Andrews.
Thank you, sir. Will the Minister confirm what funding, if any, has been provided to support displaced persons from the ongoing conflict in Gaza?
Minister.
Thank you. Since the escalation of hostilities on the 7th of October 2023, Jersey Overseas Aid have allocated a total of £280,000 to directly address the humanitarian needs in the occupied Palestinian territories, the OPT. On the 20th of October 2023, 200,000 was allocated to United Nations for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs, OCHA, which is a pooled funding scheme. And given that 85% of the Gazan population have been displaced, it's safe to say the majority of our funding was used to meet their needs. The other 80,000 was allocated in December 2023 to International Health Partners, Europe's leading organisation sourcing donated medicines for humanitarian responses worldwide. However, since 2009, Jersey has allocated 1.7 million to humanitarian interventions in OPT.
Thank you. Supplementary?
Yes, please, sir. Thank you, sir. Of course, there are concerns with Hamas, which is, again, is a terrorist organisation. So when funds are being granted to support those in need, can the Minister reaffirm that all of the funds are actually going towards people who are displaced and no funds have been actually indirectly directed to Hamas as a terrorist organisation? Thank you, sir.
Minister.
I don't think I can stand here and say 100% no funding or no aid has got through to Hamas. As the Deputy may know, UNRWA is under investigation at the moment, but with those allegations, I don't think it's I don't think aid should be stopped. In fact, we should be increasing aid because we have famine on the shores of the Mediterranean in 2024.
Any additional questions? Question 4, Deputy Wilson will put to the Minister for Health and Social Services. Deputy Wilson.
Thank you, sir. Could the Minister advise how he intends to achieve a reduction in the costs associated with employing locum and agency staff in his department?
Minister.
Sir, as the Deputy will, I'm sure, be aware, HCS are already working to implement solutions that aim to reduce the spend and the cost associated with the local and agency staffing, and that's through the implementation of the financial recovery plan, sir. And this work is already underway. As far as my own intentions are concerned, I'll be looking to facilitate changes that make HCS more efficient, which in turn will help to make it a better and consequently more attractive place to work. And these changes include efforts to make HCS more self-sufficient in areas like HR, IT, finance and procurement, sir. I'll also be involved in shaping a proper workforce strategy to ensure that we offer prospective staff, both local and from overseas, an attractive and competitive employment package.
Supplementary?
Thank you, sir, and that's welcome to hear that some of the work that was started to actually allow HCS to be self-sufficient is continuing. Could I ask the Minister also what impact the locum situation is currently having on service continuity and delivery of frontline care?
Minister.
I think it's difficult to articulate that precisely, sir, other than to say that I think we all know full well that when you've got a very stable, ongoing workforce, I would suggest that your care is bound to be better than when you've got people coming and going, sir. So in terms of a way of quantifying that, I'm afraid I can't, but I think we'd all accept the general principle.
Deputy Chairman.
Thank you, sir. Has the Minister discussed these concerns around locums and the plans that he's just outlined with SEB, and if not, will he endeavour to do so and when?
Minister.
I certainly haven't to date, but I'm very happy to do so at the earliest sensible opportunity, sir.
Final supplementary, Deputy Wilson.
Thank you, sir. Will the Minister consider making any cuts to services if there is any further demand to increase resources to cover the cost of locums?
Minister.
Without any precise, it's a slightly imprecise question. I certainly won't be looking to cut any services at all if I can possibly help it, sir.
Thank you. Before we move on to question 5, I'm in a position to announce the results of the ballot for election as an associate member of the British Irish Parliamentary Association. Votes cast were as follows: Deputy Jeune, 24 votes, Deputy Coles, 19 votes. I therefore declare that Deputy Jeune has been elected as associate member of the British Irish Parliamentary Assembly. Question 5, Deputy Stevenson will put to the Chief Minister. Deputy Stevenson.
Thank you, sir. Given the island's declining birth rate and fertility rate of just 1.32 births per woman, coupled with the ageing demographic, will the Chief Minister explain the government's position on building a sustainable population and how they intend to achieve this aim?
Chief Minister.
Thank you, sir. One of the biggest challenges facing Jersey is the ageing population and the economic versus the economically active population, sir. That is dealt with in the economic strategy recently published by the Minister for Sustainable Economic Development, and identified a clear goal for 2040 for Jersey to be a consistently high-performing, environmentally sustainable and advanced small island economy with growth that is repeatable and meets current needs while keeping our future options open, sir. Population issues will be actively considered as part of the annual Common Population Policy report that is due to be delivered later this year, sir. Ministers will be working together over the coming months to deal with that, sir, with special attention being paid to the challenges that face us, not least through the ageing population, sir, and the decrease in infertility rates, which is not just a local issue, sir, it's a global issue, sir, although our fertility rates are slightly lower than that in the UK. We're aware of that, sir. Thank you.
Supplementary.
Thank you, sir. Does the Chief Minister believe that reducing the decline in the birth rate specifically is actually achievable? And therefore, if so, will he be making it a priority? And does that include having any of his assistant ministers having delegated responsibility for population and a specific focus on this area?
Chief Minister.
Thank you, sir. I'd like to think it's possible, but we're not sure at the moment. We're examining trends and potential options in relation to addressing that situation, but we're watching closely what other countries are doing. As I said, it's not just a local issue, it's a global one, sir. I am likely to be appointing another minister or assistant minister to lead on the population issue, sir, but that's yet to be decided upon and agreed. Yes, sir, population has to remain a priority for the island because it's, as I said, it's probably excuse me, linked to the most challenging issue we face, the ageing population, and those who are going to remain economically active in the years ahead.
Yes, Deputy Jeune, then Deputy Iyer. Deputy Jeune.
Thank you, sir. A large part of a declining birth rate is the increasing cost of childcare, which means one parent has no choice but to stay at home rather than return to work. And parents can't just afford this, and also the gender pay gap shows that there is also, at the end of this choice, you are also put at a disadvantage when you need to return to work. What plans does the Chief Minister propose to reduce childcare costs, and what priority is he attaching this to the whole area of work within the Council of Ministers?
Thank you, sir. Those are areas under discussion, sir, and are playing a part in prioritisation relating to the Common Strategic Policy. I believe we need to provide more financial support, and we need to target that at early years, a nursery, because parents cannot afford to have larger families at the moment. And I speak, sir, as a grandfather of two very young children, sir, so I know the challenges young people face, and I think the cost of having families and housing in Jersey does remain a barrier and is not helping the situation. But I know that is a priority for ministers. It's a priority for the Housing Minister and affordable housing. It's a priority for the Education Minister, sir. And yes, we're alive to those challenges, sir, and we do whatever we can to assist.
Supplementary.
Yes, sir. I was just wondering if the Chief Minister would agree with me that also part of that is the future economy strategy to encourage those on the island to go back to work, to be able to contribute to the economy. And this is not just a housing and education and kind of smaller level, but actually it is a bigger future economies issue and actually quite a high priority. Would the Chief Minister agree with me?
Yes, sir, I do agree with that. And if we want to ensure people become and stay economically active, we have to provide the right support mechanisms to do that, especially when it comes to raising families, sir. Although that there is as big an issue, sir, at the other end of the scale with longevity increasing, sir. So we're alive to both issues, sir, and I do wholeheartedly support providing more affordable options which allow islanders to have families, sir, and remain economically active. Thank you.
Deputy Ayer.
Thank you, sir. Does the Chief Minister believe that the introduction of independent taxation may lead to more financial stress on families intending to have children? Thank you, sir.
Chief Minister.
I hadn't, to be honest, I hadn't really thought about that as part of the views I have on independent taxation. I support the principle of independent taxation, but members will know that I also support leaving the ability for existing married couples to continue to file joint returns. I'm not sure if I can make a link between the two, sir, but I can certainly think about that.
Supplementary.
Thank you, sir. Will the Chief Minister consider giving tax incentives to encourage people to start families? And if so, what might they be? Thank you, sir.
Chief Minister.
Okay, well, that could be an option, sir, but I don't think it would be sensible to try and guess that at this stage. But we'll certainly make sure that's part of the deliberations we have in helping young families. Thank you.
Thank you. Deputy Taddeo.
Does the Chief Minister think it could be dangerous when the government starts to use these kind of incentives? And does he think that actually the government and Treasury's position should be one of neutrality when it comes to matters of family planning?
It's a bit of a tricky question. I think generally we should leave family planning to families to decide. We don't have any rules or laws about how many children people can have or what they won't want or what suits their own circumstances. I think it's important that we provide support. It's worth mentioning that 2% of babies born in the UK last year, I think, were down to IVF support, financial support. We mustn't forget that, sir. So we also need to make sure that young families who want 2 children, sir, can afford to have children and keep working. So I think there's a balance to be struck.
Does the Minister accept that when you introduce tax incentives or tax allowances that you're actually only really helping people who already pay income tax, and that actually another mechanism by which one should be dealing with if one wants to incentivise or perhaps make sure that there's enough financial support for families, that's through the benefit system, not necessarily through the tax system?
Yes, I would agree with that, which is why I was unable to give a full answer to Deputy Ayer, because that's something that needs consideration. Thank you.
Deputy Stevenson, final supplementary.
Thank you, sir. And I'm pleased that the Chief Minister mentioned IVF treatment in there. He almost read my mind from my supplementary question. Does the Chief Minister agree with me that addressing the outdated and inadequate means-tested model for funding high-level fertility treatment that we currently have in Jersey, which is currently set at a level so low that no one has ever qualified for it, would be a very positive place to start to support those wanting to start or grow their families?
Absolutely, sir. Yes, I do.
Question 6, Deputy Southern will put to the Minister for Health and Social Services. Deputy Southern.
Thank you, sir. Will the Minister advise whether members of the public can appeal to him directly regarding clinical decisions made within his department and how these appeals are dealt with?
Minister.
Sir, as I'm sure the Deputy knows, members of the public are free to appeal to ministers as they see fit. I'm always happy to hear from interested parties, sir. However, I'm sure members will understand that it's not appropriate for me to become involved in clinical decision-making or to comment on issues of individual patient safety. That's the job of trained clinicians, sir, and the ones that have got the appropriate experience. Responsibility for patient experience currently rests with the chief nurse and the medical director, and I'm now in contact with both of them on a pretty frequent basis. Where a patient disagrees with or wishes to appeal a clinical decision, they're entitled to a second opinion from another clinician within HCS, and if that second opinion isn't available on island, that can be sought from off island, sir. I would just add that HCS has an established process by which islanders can appeal clinical decisions, and that's the Patient Advisory Liaison Service, sir.
Supplementary?
That was a very comprehensive answer, sir, for which I am grateful and will study. So thank you, but no thank you.
Question 7, Deputy War will put to the Chair of the Committee des Connétables. Deputy War.
Thank you, sir. Further to the recent work carried out on vacant homes, which demonstrated we are not making the most of our built environment and revealed that some rate assessments were based on figures over 20 years old, will the Chair commit to undertaking a review of the Rates Jersey Law 2005 and present to the Assembly the findings of this review within the next 12 months? And if not, why not?
Connétable St Lawrence.
Thank you, sir. And I thank the Deputy for his question, asking whether the Chair will commit to undertaking a review of the Rates Jersey Law 2005. In the absence of the Chair, as Vice Chair, I cannot give such a commitment. However, I recognise that the Deputy, when he was Minister for Housing and Communities, did not have the opportunity to meet with the Supervisory Committee to progress the findings of his report, Action on Vacant Properties, R151 of 2023. I'm therefore pleased to invite him to a future meeting of the Supervisory Committee to express his views to us on how he believes we are not making the most of our built environment and how a review of the Rates Jersey Law 2005 would mitigate this. We will, of course, also be meeting with the newly elected Minister for Housing and Communities, and I understand that officers are in the process of arranging that meeting.
Thank you. Supplementary?
Yes, sir. I thank the Constable for her answer. What proactive measures does the Constable believe would be most appropriate to ensure that homes that lie vacant in the parishes of our island are encouraged to be brought back into use?
I think the former minister himself, sir, was keen to see, obviously, empty homes being brought back into use. And I know that he recommended a number of ways forward that he thought would be useful to do this. He was not proposing to tax empty homes, sir, as I understand it, but he did feel that, if I can just find his recommendations, that there should be legislation considered to sorry, so just trying to identify vacant and ownerless properties. He did work with the supervisory committee, sir, to identify that there were a number of vacant homes available at the moment, and he was recommending consulting with the with HM Receiver General also. So, sir, I can't disagree with the recommendations that he made in the report that I've just mentioned. And I think the best starting point, sir, is for the Deputy to meet with the Supervisory Committee so that we can consider his views and can consider his report in detail, as well, of course, as to meet with the now Housing and Communities Minister to hear how he would want to progress this situation, sir.
Thank you. Lady Stevenson.
Thank you, sir. Does the Vice Chair believe that aspects of the rates law which mean that homeowners who make improvements to their properties for environmental and energy reduction reasons can end up paying more than they did before are fair and encourage islanders to want to be environmentally responsible?
The Rates Jersey Law 2005 doesn't stipulate whether homeowners or indeed those who rent properties should make any environmental improvements to their homes. However, the law itself does state that the attributes of a property are what the value of the property is based on. I don't think I'm explaining that very well, sir. So the attributes of a property are assessed and not the rental property. We haven't considered, as a supervisory committee, making any changes to the rates law to take into account the benefit to properties that have had environmental work undertaken on them or work to improve them environmentally. So no doubt the Deputy, if she feels that should be considered, would want to put her suggestion to us to consider it, sir.
Thank you. Supplementary?
Thank you, sir. And yes, I'm encouraged by that. I would very much like to take the Vice Chair up on that discussion further, and certainly I have one example of a constituent who'd put cladding in place and then their bill was a lot higher. So, sorry, I haven't asked a question, have I, sir?
No, we're looking forward to one, though.
I'm now stuck. But will she agree to receive further information from me on that point? Thank you.
Yes, sir. And the properties are assessed on the attributes and their condition. And it is a case that those properties that are in poor condition are assessed at less than those that are maintained in good condition. And therefore it doesn't encourage people to make improvements to them for environmental reasons, sir.
Thank you. Deputy Renouf.
Yes, sir. Would the Constable agree with me that there is a considerable social and environmental cost to the island for empty properties, in the sense that properties that are already built and not being used mean that we have to potentially consider building on green fields or in other places where we might otherwise prefer not to. We have to put in facilities to those locations and so on. And does she therefore accept that this is a significant issue that we should be addressing as a matter of urgency?
I don't disagree with the Deputy's comments. However, the review that was undertaken last year into vacant properties only identified a relatively few number of them compared to the 46,000 residential properties that we have in the island. So although I don't disagree, and I do think that we should be looking at vacant properties, not least of which is our properties that are owned by the states, the government themselves. I think we should be looking at how we can utilise any unused state-owned properties to find additional homes for the many people that need them.
Sorry, sir. Can I just clarify? The Constable said 46...
No, it's not your question.
Sorry. No, it was just a factual error. I just want to correct.
Well, perhaps in your final supplementary you can ask a question involving that matter. Yes, any supplementary, Dr. Renouf, or not?
Yes, please. Would the Constable be able to commit to investigating whether changes to the rates law might be a method by which empty properties might be incentivised to be brought back into use? For example, increasing the foncier rate on empty properties, which my understanding is would require a change to the rates law.
Yes, I think that is reviewing the rates law on empty properties is certainly something that the Supervisory Committee could commit to. However, as I said earlier, we would need to hear from the current Minister for Housing on what his views are and how he thinks that should be progressed. So I am just trying to find the correct number of domestic properties that Deputy Ward thinks I've misled the House, so I'm just trying to find that so that I can agree or disagree with him.
Well, I mean, the question was about vacant homes, so no one's expecting you to know everything about housing. Any other questions for the Conotard? Final supplementary, Deputy Ward.
Thank you, sir. I don't really have a final supplementary. I just want to help the Conotable with the number. And she referred 46,000. It's actually 4,000 was the original figure, which actually has ended up being 900 as identified by the housing team.
Sorry, can you clarify your question? 4,000 what? Because she said there were 46,000 homes.
46,000 vacant homes, sorry.
I think she said 40,000 homes in total.
I thought you referred to vacant homes. I apologise if I misheard that.
No, she said there were 40,000 homes in total. She didn't give a number of vacant homes. Oh. Do you have a final supplementary question, Deputy Ward?
So if I may just address that, sir, I understand that there are about 46,000 domestic properties.
That's what you said, yes.
And 13,000 non-domestic in the island. I wasn't saying that there were 46,000 vacant homes.
No, you weren't. Thank you. Question 8, Deputy Southern will ask of the Minister for Treasury and Resources. Deputy Southern.
Let's see if we get as clear an answer to this. Will the Minister commit to reviewing the high-value residence taxation regime in the light of publications such as The Myth of the Millionaire Tax Flight, How Place Still Matters for the Rich, and the Cage Working Paper, Taxation and Migration by the Super Rich, which contain research demonstrating clearly that jurisdictional taxation increases have little to no effect on where the super rich choose to be resident, and if not, why not?
Minister.
Thank you, sir. Sir, the high-value resident tax regime was last reviewed in autumn 2022. Changes to the fourth version of the regime came into force in January 2023. A fifth version of the regime came into force for new people coming to Jersey from July 2023. The income tax law requires me to undertake the next review before the end of 2027, and I will ask officers to review the publications to which the Deputy refers to at that time. I would, however, point out that the whole rationale of our high-value regime is people coming here to Jersey, so they have clearly made a choice to relocate, which doesn't quite stack up with the information which he's referring to. Thank you.
Supplementary.
Does the Minister, the Assistant Minister, accept the statement made by these authors that at the peaks of their careers, people have family responsibilities, spouses and children who may be opposed to moving. They also have a lot of business and social contacts with them, prominent, well-connected insiders where they live. There is no need for any mature person to move in order to respond to tax. And that's what the overriding position is.
Sir, I think the Deputy will find that while he has identified two pieces which support his argument, there are other pieces of research which say quite the reverse. And as a matter of fact, we do have young people coming to the island under the high-value regime with children, and they do so for a number of reasons. Tax may be part of that, but they also come for economic and social and other benefits. It's been a feature of Jersey for very many years, and I see no reason to discontinue it.
Thank you. Question 9, Deputy Andrews will ask of the Chief Minister. Deputy Andrews. Yes. Deputy Andrews.
Thank you, sir. Will the Chief Minister advise what consideration, if any, is being given to reforming the public sector and provide details of any proposed changes?
Chief Minister.
Thank you, sir. Discussions have begun on what steps might be taken to ensure the public service operates in the most cost-effective and efficient way to deliver the very best outcomes for our community. And that's not just a job for our government, but future government. And I know that's always going to be challenging, sir. The Council of Ministers, though, is currently working to develop a thorough knowledge of the current position before reaching conclusions, sir, but we are doing that work and will keep members updated accordingly. Thank you.
Thank you. Supplementary?
Yes, please, sir. Of course, dialogue is very important among ministers. However, what is the Chief Minister's personal views on what he would like to see in terms of public sector reform?
I want to start by saying, sir, I hold the public sector in the highest regard. We have some fantastic people working for the community through that organisation, sir, our organisation, sir. But my view is that we can do better on efficiency. We can be more effective, sir, and that's what we're going to aim to drive out, sir. We're going to try and deliver more efficiencies. We're going to try and deliver the most cost-effective outcomes for Islanders, sir, without compromising the service we provide, sir, and that might mean reprioritisation of priorities, sir, but we're looking at that now. Thank you.
Thank you. Question 10, Deputy Stevenson will put to the Minister for Infrastructure. Deputy Stevenson.
Thank you, sir. Further to the adoption of P53 2023, will the Minister advise what progress is being made in notifying the government when properties or areas of significant value to the people of Jersey become available, so that early consideration can be given to potentially acquiring them on behalf of the public?
Yes, Minister.
Thank you, sir, and I thank the Deputy for her question. The identification and acquisition of land or property to support future government services or community benefits is undertaken by Jersey Property Holdings on behalf of the Minister for Infrastructure, and it's normally based upon the known future needs and capital planning. It is recognised that not all potential sites are known via existing sources, and so to provide better signals and information to the market, Jersey Property Holdings will also be publishing the current government-owned land and property sites map on gov.je. This will allow landowners and agents to consider where their land interests may potentially supplement existing government-owned property and sites. Thank you.
Supplementary?
Thank you, sir. The amended proposition specifically referred to asking the government to go away and do a piece of work looking at what mechanisms could be put in place to prevent things like the acquisition of Greve de Lec happening again. I thank the Minister for his response, but it does kind of sound like not an awful lot has happened in relation to that review work specifically. Is he able to provide any further details about what has happened since P53 was approved by this Assembly?
Minister.
Thank you, sir. So as I mentioned, sir, we are looking to put an online map of our existing property. We are talking with agents about potential sites, and I'm happy to listen to members' ideas and suggestions, as well as those ideas from members of the public and people in the property profession. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Yes, Deputy Iyer.
Thank you, sir. Does the Minister have the resources to make any such purchases if they become available? Thank you.
Minister.
The short answer, sir, is no. So once a site is identified, we have to identify funding. And as I said when I stood for this position, so we need to look at divesting in some properties to allow us to build up some capital to acquire those properties and land that would be benefit to the island compared to some of those that are no longer in use. Thank you, sir.
Supplementary?
Thank you, sir. Will the Minister engage with the Treasury Minister to consider the option of setting up a pool of funds which would be made available in the future for any such purchases? Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. I look forward to discussing property with the Treasury Minister. My first priority, sir, will be to ensure we get sufficient funds to maintain the properties that we currently own before we go and buy further properties. That doesn't mean to say that we won't take opportunities to buy property, sir, but I will re-emphasise the importance of maintaining our existing stock before adding to it. Thank you, sir.
Deputy Brenner.
Thank you, sir. Would the Constable agree with me that the issue that was raised with the Greve de Lec purchase was the problem of finding of what to do with strategically important sites that might have community benefit, significant community benefit to the island. And is he able to offer the Assembly any reassurance that we have in place some kind of mechanism for helping to identify those sites before they go to the point where they get planning permission and therefore increase dramatically in cost?
Minister.
Thank you, sir. I don't believe that there is a formal process in place. I think the officers have been made well aware of our need to act faster in some cases. But as pointed out earlier, currently there aren't funds to secure these parcels of land or properties. So it's work in progress. It's something that I'm really keen on, looking at strategic options for the island, and something I've worked with the officers on. Thank you.
Supplementary?
Yes, so would the Constable Minister agree to report back to the Assembly in a relatively short order on how he progresses P53, particularly with regard to the mechanisms by which we might identify strategic properties and make purchases?
Minister.
So currently I'm coming up to speed with the property element of my portfolio. There's a number of things in there, and P53 is something that this House Assembly has agreed to, and therefore I feel duty bound to come back at some stage, sir. I cannot put a timeline on that currently. Thank you.
Thank you. Constable Sir Lawrence.
Thank you, sir. The question refers to properties or areas of significant value to the people of Jersey. I hope this isn't straying too far from that question, sir, but my question is there a policy at the moment whereby the states look to provide domestic properties to provide homes?
Probably straying too far from the question.
Do you think so? Okay.
Sorry about that. Are there any other questions? Final supplementary, Deputy Stevenson.
Thank you, sir. Does the Minister agree with me, and hopefully this just expands on what my colleague Deputy Ayer has asked, does the Minister agree with me that returning to this Assembly with any potential options for a mechanism should be backed up at the same time with the creation of a mechanism or a fund, even ahead of expenditure within the government plan, for potentially making such strategic purchases?
Sir, I totally agree. There's no point in coming back with a plan if there's no funding to enforce that plan. Thank you.
Thank you. That brings that period of questions to an end. And I'll move on to questions to ministers without notice. And the first question period is questions for the Minister for Justice and Home Affairs. And the first question is from Deputy Catherine Curtis and the Conotab of Unity. Yes.
Thank you, sir. Has the Minister received the 2022 Police Annual Report or the policing plan for the next few years? And if not, why not?
Thank you, sir. The actual annual report was actually slightly delayed and was only issued at the end of 2023. I therefore will be actually looking at it and reviewing it and ensuring that I'm happy with it, and then it will be ultimately published.
Supplementary?
Yes, please. I did also ask about the policing plan for the next few years. And I wanted to say I believe that the data relating to searches, vehicle checks and custody has not been included in the police annual report since around 2016. Will the Minister ensure this information will be included in future as required by law?
Thank you, sir, and apologies to the Deputy. Yes, the policing plan needs to be looked at as well by myself, and I will also look at why the figures in relation to custody were removed in the 2016 plan and advise her of that position once I've established it.
Conotab of Trinity.
Thank you, sir. If I could ask the Minister, her predecessor gave an undertaking that she would investigate means of supporting the parishes with the excessive cost of Tetra radios and their licences, and also the cost of the States Police providing training to the Honorary Police. And would she undertake to maintain that commitment?
Minister.
Thank you to the Constable for the question. As a former police officer, I fully understand the value and important role of the Honorary Police in keeping the island safe. We would not be able to have the service that we do without them. I'm pleased, therefore, that I have now got the Constable of St Peter as my Assistant Minister, so we'll be able to provide a very close update in relation to the Constables and the Honorary Police. I'm committed to further exploring the options that we may have in relation to the viability of the Honorary Police and in relation to the equipment that they receive. I'm fully aligned to the fact that there are quite a number of different types of licences that are required for various types of access, and I will look at that as a priority and will look to meet with the committee as soon as I possibly can.
Thank you. Supplementary?
Thank you, sir.
Deputy Ayer.
Thank you, sir. With reference to the Criminal Injury Compensation Board's annual report, could the Minister explain the reason for the final award payments increasing by a multiple of 3 since 2020 to 2023, from 145,000 to 423,000, even though the number of cases resolved has reduced from 32 to 27? Thank you, sir.
I thank the Deputy for the question. I recently met with the chair of the Compensation Board, and obviously COVID did have some impact in relation to delays potentially of cases. The increase is actually in relation to historic abuse cases which have now been finalised. There's also been an increase in relation to some sexual offences as a result of some additional law which has been introduced.
Supplementary?
Thank you, sir. Is the Minister expecting these award payments to rise incrementally in the coming years? Thank you, sir.
Minister.
I think that's a difficult one for me to answer, but I think realistically they probably will, from the point of view that compensation will rise like everything else does by percentages. But also I think the thing is that there's probably better knowledge and understanding in relation to victims in relation to offences. So I think that it is likely, or is potentially likely, that that will happen.
Thank you. Deputy Stevenson.
Thank you, sir. Given that there is a shortage of jockeys and qualified professionals to fill other horse racing related jobs within the UK, which in turn is impacting on Jersey, will the Minister commit to investigate whether the role of jockey can be designated an exception under the skilled worker criteria of the Jersey work permit policy in a similar way to how professional rugby players have been in the past?
It's a bit ironic that the question from the Deputy, sir, because actually in the last week or so there has actually been a review by the Immigration Department exactly into this matter.
I'm very glad to hear that. Is the Minister able to explain that that means there is a change which will allow that to be accepted?
I think the Immigration Department has reviewed a number of licences, and I think it's like with everything, or work permits, in relation to everything, in relation to people coming into the island on work permits. There needs to be a continual look at what skills are necessary. So I think it is an ongoing piece of work. And as I said, we were able to assist in the relation to the matter that the Deputy raised.
Sorry, sir, I don't believe that my question has been answered, because it was about an exception to the policy rather than just a single case that has been appealed and approved. It was about a wider policy position.
I think she said it's being reviewed. Did you not, Minister?
Yes, so what I actually said was, I think for all skilled positions, there will be a need for immigration to continually look at what skills fit into the criteria, because obviously if you look at our workforce, it is constantly changing. So what today may be skilled employment which we can fill on island, there may be a need for it to come off Ireland. So I think it's something that the Immigration Department are aware of and will look at individual matters. And the one that the Deputy raises was one that was actually looked at, and as a result of that, it was achieved.
Deputy Jones.
Thank you, sir. Does the Minister have any plans to change the underlying philosophy of the Child First Justice and the Youth Justice Strategy?
Minister.
Thank you, sir, for the Deputy, for the question. I think the Youth Justice Child First principle is something that will be maintained. This piece of work is currently sitting with me and is going to be reviewed by myself shortly. And so therefore, so that's my point at the time. It is with me for review, and I will be looking at it as it is shortly.
Supplementary.
Yes, sir, thank you. Will the Minister support proposals to create behavioural orders and explain her reasoning for why she will or will not support such proposals?
I think with any justice policy, there is a need for various elements, and in relation to justice orders, I believe that we need to progress and move forward, and I think we need to look at all options to ensure that we assist in ensuring that our justice system is fit for purpose.
Yes, Deputy Kovac.
Thank you, sir. The State of Jersey Customs and Immigration Service no longer publish an annual report, but do provide relevant statistics where required for government management or reporting purposes. There is no current obligation for the report to be published, so it was felt to be more efficient to focus resources on the provision of accurate information as required. Data that was included in this annual report, such as drug seizures, now has to be acquired via annual Freedom of Information request. Will the Minister consider the reintroduction of annual reports for the Customs Service, and if not, why not?
I think most departments do actually publish an annual report. I'm not actually aware why the Customs and Immigration Department stopped publishing an annual report, and so I would therefore need to go back to the department and ask that question in order that I can feed that back to the Deputy.
You'd have a supplementary, Deputy.
Thank you. Can you circulate with all the members, can the Deputy circulate with all the members why was initially stopped that report, and then if there is possibility to have that report started again?
I can certainly do that, Ma'am.
Any other questions for the Minister? Deputy Wilson.
She will continue the work of
Microphone, Deputy.
Sorry. Can the Minister confirm if she will continue the work of her predecessor in relation to the Diversity, Equality and Inclusion programme?
Yes, I absolutely will be continuing the work that was started by the previous Minister in relation to inclusivity.
Supplementary.
Yes, thank you. Can the Minister advise what priority she has identified in that programme in terms of the resources that she needs to be able to progress that work?
This document is actually currently still on my list to review, and I will be reviewing that within the next week or so, and then I will forward that information to the Deputy.
Are there any other questions for the Minister? Justice and Home Affairs. Deputy Ayer.
Thank you, Ma'am. Has the Minister made a decision about the siting of the blue light services? Does she believe that they should be at Rouge Boyle? And is there enough space at Rouge Boyle if the school remains on the same site? Thank you.
Thank you. Ironically, I accosted the Infrastructure Minister at Broad Street yesterday. This is a matter which myself, the Minister for Infrastructure and the Education Minister will be looking at in the coming week or so, because obviously there are three of us that need to sit down and work out exactly what's going to happen. I won't give my own personal view, but I think we can come to a very good, successful resolution.
Supplementary, Deputy.
Yes, Ma'am, thank you. During any considerations about what should be sited at the Risborough location, has there been any engagement with the owners of the Kerwoods garage? Was that is situated right between the two sites, and if any extension is made, that would need to be purchased? Thank you, Mark.
As far as I'm aware, no consultation has been made with Kerwoods in relation to purchase of the site, unless that was made within the previous government, but that's not something that I've been made aware of. But obviously, when I speak to the Infrastructure and Education Minister, that's something that we can obviously discuss.
Any other questions? If there are no other questions, then that draws to an end the question period for the Minister for Justice and Home Affairs, and we move on then to the Minister for International Development. Are there any questions for this Minister? Deputy Jean.
Thank you, ma'am. How does JOA ensure proper oversight and the correct financial management is being administered by partners to safeguard any potential misuse of funds of corruption?
As the Deputy will know, the countries that we choose to work with, we take into account the corruption perception index of a particular country. I think we're one of the only aid agencies that do this. But as far as the partners, we do huge amounts of due diligence on them. We put them through Mango checks. Don't ask me what the exact acronym stands for. And we also visit our partners. We visit the projects. I think having scored a 4 out of 4 on the internal audit, I think we do as much as we possibly can do.
Do you have a supplementary, Deputy?
Yes, thank you. Is the Minister aware of any example of instances where misuse of funds has been identified within JOA-funded projects? And if so, how did JOA ensure that the recipients of the project, particularly the most vulnerable, were not adversely affected by such misuse?
We always encourage a dialogue with our partners, and if we're unhappy with how a project is going or unhappy about certain elements of it, as I say, we speak to them, we try to work it out with them if they need an extension of time. We like to work with them in all cases. There have been a couple of instances where we have been unhappy and unhappy enough to request the money back. And obviously we will do all we can to mitigate the circumstance, but we can't do everything. I mean, if a project is failing, it's failing.
Deputy Porre.
Thank you, ma'am. Ahead of the debate we will have today on the ceasefire, would the Minister at this moment in time consider giving aid to Israel? Thank you.
Aid must go where there is a need, and on the basis of humanity, the humanitarian principles, which are humanity, impartiality, neutrality, and independence. And I would not support giving aid as a balancing gesture. In any event, to date, the State of Israel has not requested international humanitarian assistance, and nor would I be able to give it. Israel is a member of the OECD and is not classified by the World Bank as a low to middle income country. In fact, in 2022, it's rated as the 18th wealthiest country in the world. Israel is therefore not eligible to receive the aid that I give, the official development assistance, which wouldn't be accepted in the humanitarian financing framework. So in other words, I can't give humanitarian aid to Israel, but I don't really believe it needs it at this time.
Do you have a supplementary, Deputy?
No, thank you, ma'am.
Are there any other questions for the Minister for International Development? If there are no other questions, somebody needs to call the Chief Minister because he's going to have to deal with the remaining time period. I think if we could pause the clock, Grafia. Excellent. I fear you may need it, Chief Minister, because there's quite a lot of time on the clock. So first up, I have Deputy Coles and then Deputy Southern. Deputy Coles.
Thank you, Mum. Given that Germany is now another country that has legalised cannabis for personal use and possession, and the then Senator Farnham suggested that it would be sensible to look at other jurisdictions, does the Chief Minister now agree that it might be a time to consider decriminalising cannabis for personal use?
Well, sir, I'm not sure whether I'm personally in favour for that or not. But I think it's a debate this Assembly needs to have, sir, and I would hope it would have that debate during this session. Thank you.
Supplementary?
Only around the sort of timescale he would consider, the Chief Minister would consider for this debate on cannabis.
I think it's, I haven't discussed it with colleagues on the Council of Ministers, but I would say given our list of priorities and what we are seeking to achieve, it's unlikely to come on a proposition from the government, but I will discuss it. Of course, it doesn't stop, sir, a backbencher or a non-executive member from bringing a proposition.
Deputy Southern.
Following the response of the Home Affairs and Customs Minister, who said she wasn't aware that the annual report published by her department were no longer freely available, and that information which used to be contained in the annual report is now only available by FOI. Is the Chief Minister aware that several departments have ceased publishing annual reports and have therefore become much less transparent in terms of how easy it is to get information on their activities, which used to be through the annual report?
I believe I speak for all ministers when I say the aim of this government is to be as transparent as we possibly can. I am not aware of all of the reports that have been made available only by FOI, sir, and if, ma'am, beg your pardon, and if they have, we need to understand the reasons why they have in relation to Home Affairs. It could be in relation to security. I don't know, sir, but we will undertake to look at that, sir, ma'am, beg your pardon, and to look at that and ensure that if there are no valid reasons why reports should be withheld, we will make them available to the public, but we need to understand the reasons.
Just supplementary.
Will he take a step further rather than accept what is now the status quo? Will he agree to press for greater transparency by having, in particular, I mentioned this one department in particular, the Social Security annual report, which used to be a mine of information, all of which useful, but no longer is, at that accessible? Will he press ministers to change the status quo and try and get more information released in annual reports?
I'll certainly discuss it with the relevant ministers. I hope the fellow ministers will be of a similar mind that transparency is key to restoring confidence in the Assembly and the government. So I certainly undertake to have those discussions. Thank you.
Deputy Jeune.
Thank you, ma'am. Will the Chief Minister advise whether he will be supporting his Minister for External Relations amendments to P7, and how has he worked with his Council of Minister colleagues to ensure they will also be supporting their Minister for External Relations, who works on behalf of the Council of Ministers?
It's absolutely clear that this is a matter of conscience, and there is no expectation amongst the Council of Ministers on members to vote outside of their conscience of this issue. I'm going into the debate with an open mind. I intend to support the amendment of the External Relations Minister, and I understand that progress has been made with a further amendment to the amendment that's been lodged. And I think, as small as our voice might be on this occasion, I would like us to have the debate, to represent freely our own consciences, to represent best we can the views of islanders, and to leave the Assembly this evening, if we finish it this evening, more united than when we came in this morning. Thank you.
Supplementary, Deputy Joan.
Absolutely, and thank you very much for Chief Minister for his explanation. And in light of this, and to ensure the transparency for the public and the Assembly, will the Chief Minister be publishing a code of conduct for his Council of Ministers, or will he leave each Minister to be lobbying for each and every proposition or amendment that they bring forward to the Assembly in the future? Thank you.
We do have an agreed code of conduct for ministers. I thought it had been published, but if it hasn't, we'll ensure it's published because it has been agreed by the Council of Ministers. Thank you.
Deputy Renouf.
Thank you. On a similar theme, the Minister said in his earlier answer that he won't be enforcing full collective responsibility, sorry, the Chief Minister, that he won't be enforcing full collective responsibility because he doesn't believe in it, but he also says he wants to achieve unity where he can. I think I got that right. Correct me if I'm wrong. Does he accept that there is a risk that ministers, notwithstanding matters of conscience, such as the vote on the Palestinian ceasefire proposition, will end up speaking against each other in public?
Chief Minister.
I think we have to learn how to disagree in this Assembly from time to time and realise that it's part of a healthy democracy when we do that. As long as we disagree, when we do disagree, we're unable to present our arguments, you know, in a proper way, to win the arguments, to win the debates. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I will, of course, be persuading ministers to unite and show unity wherever possible. And I'm pleased to say that from the early experiences of the Council of Ministers meeting, I'm very, very pleased to note the very positive can-do attitude of ministers and the willingness for us all to work together, even when we don't agree. So that's what we're going to try and do moving forward. We're going to apply some common sense. We're going to allow ourselves to debate, think thoroughly. We're going to say it's okay to disagree at times, and we're going to learn to articulate our arguments in a way that we can win the debates and bring the best outcomes for islanders. Thank you.
Supplementary, Deputy Renouf.
Yes, sir. I thank the Chief Minister for that. I think the point I'd hone in on is the question of who in that case will speak for the government in particular circumstances where there is a disagreement. Who should the public, for example, listen to establish what the government view is on a matter where the ministerial team may be disagreeing amongst itself?
Well, so I think we have a mature Council of Ministers who are engaged with their subjects and have one outcome in mind, and that's to deliver the best outcomes for islanders. Of course, all ministers speak on behalf of the government when they're speaking on issues, issues that relate to them. As Chief Minister, I will speak on behalf of the government when necessary. But the Council of Ministers will act in a democratic way. We'll have the debates around the table, and then we will bring the results of those debates to the Assembly. And where there are not matters of conscience, I will try and insist, where reasonably possible, that we are united. Where there are matters of conscience, I will always leave it to a free vote. And I just want to demonstrate an example as suggested by as said by the Deputy Mezek, who is the Housing Minister and the leader of the Form Jersey Party, that they will accept democratic decisions around the Council of Ministers table and move on. And I think that should be applauded, and we should all move to take a leaf out of that book when we disagree. Thank you.
Deputy Ayer.
Thank you, Ma'am. The Chancellor is intending to announce a vaping products levy in his budget next week. Does the Chief Minister support the concept of a tax on vaping?
Chief Minister.
I was just trying to sneak a view of the Environment Minister, who's sitting behind me, who's I know is considering that. We're alive to the dangers of vaping, and I know the Minister has plans for, I think, banning the use of disposable vapes. Further than that, I'd have to discuss that with the Environment Minister, or perhaps he could direct the question to the Environment Minister. Thank you.
Supplementary, Deputy Dublé.
Thank you, ma'am. From what age does the Chief Minister think that government should fund a universal high-quality childcare offering from? Does he believe it should be from age 2 or perhaps from earlier at 1 year of age?
I believe right now that it should be from earlier.
Supplementary, Deputy.
Sorry, could the Minister give a number, an age? That's not my supplementary, that's a clarification.
Well, in answer to the question, I believe the Deputy asked if I believed it should be support from 2 or 1. I would say 1.
I thank the Chief Minister for his answer, and prior to that age, before a child is in childcare, and for parents who cannot afford to care for their child at home, how would the Chief Minister propose that the government support parents to do so?
I haven't been able to consider the detail on that yet, but we'll have to consider that. I presume the Deputy is referring to help outside of income support measures. Perhaps you could clarify that in a supplementary.
She's had a supplementary. Are you content with the response that's been given there, Deputy, that it's something that the Chief Minister will be considering? Deputy Curtis.
Ma'am, the Chief Minister highlighted work is underway on a new common strategic policy. Does he envisage this will include a priority for Jersey to provide good quality housing that meets reasonable standards, such as for the accessibility of individuals?
I'm trying to look for any lacunas in the question, but I think it's fairly straightforward. Yes, I would support that. Thank you.
Supplementary?
Yes. Does he support, in his common strategic policy, accessibility and inclusion more widely as a priority?
I'm not sure how the priorities will end up in the common strategic plan because we're still discussing it. But unity, inclusion for all citizens is going to be a high priority. I'm not sure where it's going to appear on the scale in the plan, though. Thanks.
Deputy Moore.
Thank you, ma'am. Could the Assembly receive an explanation of the reason for transferring £3 million from the currency fund to the consolidated fund, please?
Chief Minister.
I can't on the top of my head. I'll have to confer with the Treasury Minister and come back to that.
Well, I look forward to the Assembly being provided with the answer at its earliest convenience. Perhaps then the the Deputy might be able to tell the Assembly whether they will maintain the funding solution that had been found for a new series of Bergerac to be filmed in the island for broadcast later this year, given the recent welcome of the island, the good response to the island being on national television last week.
Well, I thank the Deputy for that. Members may know or remember that I've in the past been a proponent for the establishment of a screen fund and the support of investment in such activity to promote Jersey. Of course, there's been one or two hiccups along the way. And in relation to Bergerac, there has been one or two false starts. The ask for the investment is, I think, £1.8 million towards the contribution, and I've got a meeting scheduled later in the week to discuss it. I think ultimately it's something I'd have to take to the Council of Ministers, given the priorities we have. Having said that, we must remember that these sort of things are investments and could return us significantly larger amounts of money than we put in. So it's something that's being considered.
Ma'am, that doesn't answer the question. There was a funding solution already on the table. The question was simple. Will he be following it up and agreeing to it?
The answer is simple. I haven't decided yet.
Does any other member wish to ask a question of the Chief Minister? Deputy Wilson.
Thank you, Ma'am. Could the Chief Minister confirm that all matters have been resolved in relation to the teachers' pay dispute and that terms and conditions have been signed off?
I can confirm that in relation to pay. I cannot confirm that in relation to the terms and conditions. I think it's a question for the Education Minister. I think that's likely to be ongoing, but I, touching wood, don't envisage too many problems, and I understand discussions are progressing well.
Do you have a supplementary, Deputy?
No, thank you.
Does any other member have a question? Deputy Iyer. Deputy Iyer.
Thank you, Ma'am. Will the Chief Minister update the Assembly on the introduction of the Ombudsman, which we've been waiting approximately 7 years for, and I understand the funding was allocated in the government plan? Thank you, Ma'am.
Again, so that's something we've yet to discuss at Council of Ministers, but being absolutely open with the Assembly, there is concern from some ministers that the cost of running the Ombudsman needs to be re-examined, so we need to have those discussions before agreeing to the timetable. I'm mindful that budget has been approved for that, but as I mentioned earlier, we're going to be looking at prioritisation, and being open with the Assembly, I think that's one area we might need to reconsider. Having said that, I'm not saying I'm for or against it, and I'm aware that it's based on a decision that was made some time ago for this Assembly, so I think it's going to be about the timing and how we prioritise funds. Thank you.
Do you have a supplementary, Deputy Iyer? Deputy Andrews.
Thank you, Ma'am. How soon will the Council of Ministers amalgamate the minimum wage into a living wage?
I'm very pleased to say that the Ministers for Social Security and Economic Development are leading on this and currently discussing with officials and other members and third parties the best way to deliver this in a manner that's manageable and affordable for the business sectors that are impacted. I'm confident that we can get to a minimum or a living wage. We can move from a minimum wage to a living wage, and we can make significant progress to that over the next 2 to 3 years maximum. But I'm pleased to say good progress is being made, ma'am, and I am supportive of obtaining that goal as soon as we possibly can. Thank you.
Supplementary.
Yes, ma'am. So the Chief Minister, can he confirm that this will actually be implemented before the end of this term of office?
I can't guarantee it. I can't guarantee it, but I would hope, but I'm confident that we can get most of the way there. We can make significant progress.
Deputy Jeune.
Thank you, ma'am. Following from the carbon neutral roadmap that was agreed in 2022, which include appointing a Minister for Energy and Climate Change, will the Chief Minister explain to the Assembly how he will ensure specific responsibilities are assigned to someone within the Council of Ministers around energy and climate change?
Well, I'm content for that responsibility to lie with the Minister and Assistant Minister for Environment. And I have discussed this with the Minister for the Environment, and I believe it's a matter for him to decide at this stage, and I believe he's intending to lead on it himself. Thank you.
Supplementary.
Thank you.
Deputy Renouf.
Yes, ma'am. Could the Chief Minister advise where the funds came from to solve the teachers' dispute?
The 8%, 7.9, the difference between 7.9 to 8%, and the increase in the payment, which applies to 2024, I understand, will come from existing government revenues in the government plan. And in relation to 2025 and 2026, cost of living plus 1%, that will be allocated in the budgeting for the forthcoming government plans. But the expenditure, as the Deputy should know, for future budgets are based on the revenue. So the payroll expenditure for the whole public sector, including teachers, comes from the tax revenues we receive.
Supplementary.
Yes, so it was the point I was trying to get to was the increase in funding for the pay rise over and above the previous pay rise. Money was not provided in the government plan and therefore presumably had to be allocated from somewhere. I wonder if he could clarify where that was, and as a supplementary, could he also clarify whether he has considered the potential for pay rises in the public sector to increase to try and match the pay rise that was achieved by the teachers.
I'll come back to the Deputy on exactly where it's approximately £500,000 that increases is being allocated from. I'll refer to the Treasury on that, they'll be able to provide that. And yes, this is something that the State's Employment Board discussed at its first meeting last week, whether we wanted to, we are aware that what we've offered to the teachers might be attractive to the rest of the public sector. It might not be attractive to the rest of the public sector. Perhaps the rest of the public sector were hoping that on the grounds that their pay in real terms has decreased by 15% against cost of living over the last few years, might be asking for significantly more. So it might be so I don't think it's too negative. I think actually we've recognised the pay increase for teachers was to recognise the value we place on the teaching profession and to go some small way to bringing their pay back into line. And I expect to have similar discussions with the rest of the public sector.
Deputy Tadia.
Why does the Chief Minister think that he and his government were so quick to resolve the teachers' dispute when the previous government were not able to do so?
Well, I think the previous government was very, very close, and it was just a small step to get there. Thank you.
Supplementary? No. Deputy Curtis.
Will the Chief Minister outline if there are any areas of perceived or actual government red tape or burdensome processes he has asked ministers to prioritise addressing?
The Minister for Sustainable Economic Development is due to report on that imminently. And I haven't had detailed discussions with him, how he's going to prioritise, on which bit of red tape we want to get rid of first. But I expect him to report on that imminently. So I'm trying to remember when that's due to happen. I think it was April.
Does the Chief Minister have any areas personally he has felt need addressing outside of the Minister for Sustainable Economic Development's remit, and which ministers would he like to see address what?
One of the biggest concerns for me, and again this is not meant to criticise ministers, but one of the biggest areas for me is planning. I think our planning law needs completely reviewing. And I think we need to find a way of streamlining, fast-tracking certain planning applications for crucial affordable homes. I think we need to look at reducing planning fees where we can to encourage developments. So, short answer is planning is a big area that I think we need to look at, and the Environment Minister is aware of that. We've had some discussions about that.
Deputy Southern.
The use of banding around the words red tape is very common, and the Minister's just done it. Could it not be the case that actually what we should be referring to when we talk about red tape is health and safety? Is it not the case that red tape is not a great burden, but health and safety issues might be, but quite justifiably?
Well, Absolutely, sir. And I would start by saying that the other colours of tape are available, and but not making light of the matter. Of course, I think we have over the years put restrictions in place where we haven't needed to, and those are the areas we need to focus on. We need to free up society from being overburdened by detail that we shouldn't need to provide, which is impacting upon our lives, sir. And I think planning is an example where quite clearly important and key developments have been held up for various reasons, and sending applications back to the department are hugely costly for people wanting to invest in property or build homes. And again, that's no criticism of any of the planning committee or the minister, of course. We mustn't interfere when it comes to health and safety, insofar as long as the health and safety regulations that keep us safe are appropriate and proportionate, we must continue to support them.
Supplementary, Deputy?
No, thank you.
Deputy Tadio.
The Chief Minister's been on record as saying that he thinks government tries to do too much. Could he give some tangible examples of where he thinks that's the case?
Well, I'd rather not just yet. I'd rather complete our research into that. I don't want to criticise or set hairs running in departments without being in a position to know all the detail and present that in a balanced and sensible way. I hope the Deputy can understand that. Thanks.
I do understand that, but I also presume there must be some evidence that the Minister's seen to make him have that conclusion that government does too much. So I'm not sure if he's got anything he can add to say why he's come to that conclusion.
I've come to that conclusion because I'm actually comparing the government plans. And if you look at the 2023 to 2026 government plan heads of expenditure, and then you compare that to the 24 to 2027 heads of expenditure, there are huge increases. And so we want to know why there are huge increases. Now, obviously, inflation plays a part in that. But at the same time, we've got huge challenges on the front lines of the health service. We've got challenges for education. We need to build homes, affordable homes for young people. And this government wants to ensure that we have the funds available to do that. And so we're going to reprioritise and look at where we're spending funds where perhaps we don't need to, and point those funds in the right direction. So those are the principles that's led to this review.
Any other questions for the Chief Minister in the final minute of question time? Very well.
Propose the adjournment.
Yeah, if the adjournment has been proposed, does anybody want to second that? Then the Assembly stands adjourned until 2:15.